All right, sweet man. We are on recording episode one, bro. That's right.
Ready to
I don't
get it,
know
man.
how long we're gonna take to do all this, bro, but I'm excited about it. Really, I am. To
Mine
do
too.
a whole reading, cover to cover. This will be my third time if we make it together on this. Third time going cover to cover. So I've still got so much to learn, man. And I'm just glad I get to share the experience with somebody. It's
Every- Everybody does, man.
bro.
And no matter who it is, whoever talks about reading the Bible all the way through always says they come up with something new or lots of new things every time they go
Every
through it.
time, bro. Yeah.
So, and we were talking before we recorded the other night about Leviticus and how we're gonna probably pull a whole lot out of there because we're gonna pour some
Probably. Yeah, man. And we got two minds on it, and that's really good, bro. Because being by yourself sometimes, it's easy to check out for days at a time. You know what I mean? I found myself, at least the first time going through, I needed time of reflection, almost to kind of like let things marinate. You know what I'm saying? Job was a heavy one the first time reading it. I would go a day or two without reading again, because it's like whatever I did read needed to really soak in before I could get into the next part. I almost didn't want to pick it up again until I felt ready for it. And so to have somebody going through it with me is actually pretty sweet, because it's probably going to streamline the process, I would imagine, you know. Um,
Yeah, that's exactly what I meant with the Leviticus. That'd be very helpful to me personally.
yeah,
Is Leviticus, just it's so hard for me to just stay focused, with the repetition and everything. But
no
yeah,
doubt. No doubt. All right. Well,
all right.
let's start in the beginning, bro. We're gonna hit Genesis 1. We got a real novel idea. We'll start in the beginning, and from there on, man, we'll get into a commentary. And dude, we're gonna have a lot of fun doing this. All right. So I'm in the King James version, and we're in Genesis chapter 1. And feel free to stop me whenever you want to, bro. So Genesis 1:1, and it says, "In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, Let there be light. And there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good, and God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day. And God said, Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. And God made the firmament, and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. And God called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day. And God said, Let the waters under the heaven be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land appear. And it was so. And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters called he seas. And God saw that it was good. And God said, Let the earth bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed, and the fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind, whose seed is in itself, upon the earth. And it was so. And the earth brought forth grass, and herb yielding seed after his kind, and the tree yielding fruit, whose seed was in itself after his kind. And God saw that it was good. And the evening and the morning were the third day.
All right, let's stop there, man.
Go for it, bro.
We've already covered the first 3 days, and honestly, I'd like to go back with this a little bit.
Sure.
And anybody that might watch this later on, I'd like you to go through this verse by verse and think about your viewpoint of the world and take that and throw it all out and read this just for what it says down to the third day. And you can keep going if you'd like, or stop after the first day, even. And you'll find that the worldview that we've been commonly exposed to is completely different from this.
Right.
There's no compatibility. And a lot of times Christians will say things like, especially in the Protestant world, sola scriptura. But you can't make it through the first 14 verses of this book before the sola scriptura goes out the window.
Mm-hmm.
Or they say things like, let God be true and every man a liar. But when you get to, through verse 13, that's already gone, man.
Right.
A lot of the time. So anybody that's watching this, I just suggest that you make a decision, especially if you're a Christian, you make a decision. This is the authority. This is the authority.
Right. Right.
The school teacher's not the authority. The pastor's not the authority. The seminary's not the authority. This is the authority. So this is the authority. Take these first verses and read through it and start developing a worldview.
Right.
That synergizes with the Word of God and not with the Word of man.
110%, man. 110%. This is, I think this is probably the most, it's just one of the most special moments ever in all of my life. The very first time I picked it up, blank slate, just took it for what it said, man. And I came in it with no agenda to prove a point or to be proven right or wrong or whatever. I just picked it up and just read it and just let it say what it said. Special.
Now, with that being said, would you like to start over now?
Yeah, we can. Yeah, no doubt at all. Let's restart this thing. All right, so back up to the tippity top. I'm screen sharing right now, so if you see yourself not moving or anything, that's probably why.
Oh,
so.
no, that's fine, man.
Got you. All right, here we go. Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And God saw the light that it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day.
All right, let me stop you there, man.
Go for it.
Let me ask you something.
What's up?
There's light here, right? When you're looking in verse 3.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a sun?
Not yet. I guess it's up for
Okay.
debate if it's an S-O-N, maybe up for debate, but an S-U-N, we haven't found one yet.
No, I don't see an S-U-N sun anywhere.
Nowhere. No.
I don't see that anywhere yet. I think we're going to get there.
Right.
Just a food for thought, man. All right.
Where are we at, 7?
Would you like me to read the second day?
Yeah, dude, go for it.
And God said, let there be an expanse in the middle of the waters. An expanse is what it says here. And let it separate the waters from the waters. And God made the expanse and separated the waters that were under the expanse from the waters that were above the expanse. And it was so. And God called the expanse heaven. And there was evening and there was morning, the second day. Now, would you like to read that part from the KJV, since I'm reading out of the English Standard Version?
Sure. Yeah. It's not much different. It says, and God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. God called the firmament heaven, and the evening and morning were the second day.
Could you do me a favor?
Sure.
Since you have the Blue Letter Bible there, could you pull up and show the definition of what's translated there as firmament? Because I have expanse here, but firmament and expanse seem to be two different things.
Agreed. Expanse seems like outer space, doesn't it?
It seems like a very new idea to me.
All right, so in the firmament, which is probably anything but a new idea, it is the extended surface, in parentheses, solid. The next word is actually expanse. Firmament, expanse, flat as base. Support. Firmament is the vault of heaven supporting waters above, considered by Hebrews as solid and supporting waters above.
Now that word there for firmament, that would be rakia, right?
Yes.
Now, how many other places in the Bible is I'm just out of curiosity, is rakia used for expanse?
You know, that is a fantastic question. If you would find something to talk about for just a second, I've got the perfect tool to get that information for you.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's so funny how you can go between Bibles and between translations and get completely different messaging just by changing one word in the English language.
No doubt.
And, you know, words mean things. A wise man's once said that. Words mean things. And it sounds so simple, but words mean things. Definitions don't change, or they shouldn't change, because if they do change too drastically, you lose the ability to communicate. And once you lose the ability to communicate, you don't have much hope in talking to anybody and anybody understanding what you're saying.
To answer your question, the word firmament is used 15 times according to this searcher. This is just a Bible app. And when you find firmament, the code for it every single time, 15 times from Genesis up until Daniel, is H7549. So you're going to get the exact same rakia. It's always rakia. H7549 is rakia.
Is there any other places that it's I know I'm asking a lot, but I'm just curious. The word rakia is translated from the Hebrew into English as expanse.
In the KJV, I have nothing. I mean, even when I search up the word expanse for the entire Bible to find the word expanse, it's nowhere in the KJV. Am I answering your question?
Yes, that's what I'm asking. That seems to be a ESV exclusive translation.
Yeah, the word expanse is, according to my app, which, you know, I've never found any problems with it ever. You feel free to Google search behind me or whatever, but the word expanse is never found at all in the KJV Bible.
All right, man. I just wanted to point that out and just
yeah.
As we're going through it, man, I'd like to pick through it with a fine tooth comb and really get down to the crux of it, because when you're dealing with the first book of the Bible, it covers, a lot of people don't realize this, it covers a lot of time, and hopefully we'll get into the exact amount of time, and we have something coming up in a few chapters when we get to chapter 10 and the Table of Nations.
Right.
We get there, we got something to go over that has to do with the passage of time. But let's see here. Yeah, the Septuagint is closer to the KJV than it is the ESV I'm looking at here.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
All right, sir, if you want to go ahead.
Sure, man. Yeah, let's do it. So we just now finished up our second day. So we're back in Genesis 1, verse 9. It says, "And God said, Let the waters under the heaven be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land appear. And it was so. And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters called he seas. And God saw that it was good. And God said, Let the earth bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed, and the fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind, whose seed is in itself upon the earth. And it was so. And the earth brought forth grass, and herb yielding seed after his kind, and the tree yielding fruit, whose seed was in itself after his kind, and God saw that it was good. And the evening and morning were the third day." Now, I personally have something to bring up here that is just a question and something that I'd love to dive in there with you, but it would probably take a little bit of time. So I'm going to go ahead and write that down. And when we finish this chapter, it's something that I'd love to hear your thoughts on. But
let's do it, man. While we're here, before we forget, let's go ahead and go through it.
Sure, yeah. My question for you is, because I don't have a good answer for this. My question for you is, going back up into just verse 2, "And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters." I guess my question, as bluntly as I can place it, is, where is the creation of water, and why does it seem that water has already been created before he even created heaven and earth?
Yes, water is there. The purpose of the firmament is to separate the waters from the waters.
Right.
And then when you get into Enoch, it talks about the windows of heaven being open and water being poured into an enclosure. You get that there. And then also in the biblical account of the flood, you get the fountains of the great deep, came forth. So
Right.
you have water that's under the earth, trapped in it, water above the firmament, and then you have water in the atmosphere and the seas and
Right.
the river system that appears, looking at the seafloor and just the way everything lines up. It appears there was a worldwide river system at one point in time. We could go over that some if you'd like it at some point, but there was
No,
a lot.
that sounds like fun. I don't know what to Google for that. While we're here, I think it's important to point out, though, since you've made a point to speak about the firmament, I think it's interesting in Genesis 1:1, God creates the heaven and the earth, and then later on down here when he makes the firmament in verse 8, he calls it heaven. So I think it's important to lay out that I don't think there are necessarily, discrepant, what's the word, contradictions here. You know what I'm saying? I think it's easy to look at that and say, well, he created heaven in verse 1, and then he calls the firmament heaven in verse 8, but the firmament wasn't even made until after. You know what I'm trying to say? I don't.
There's always you can make an argument against grass being green if you like. You know what I mean? You can make an argument against gravity and some arguments against gravity. But what I'm saying is there's always an argument to be made about everything.
Right.
If you read it, put it this way. We live in a generation where people have a 15-second attention span. Okay.
Agreed.
The people that built civilization and Western civilization in particular read this book and found no fault in it for years and years and years and years and years.
Right.
So down the line as we are and as diluted as we are in Western culture, to think that we know better than the men and women that created Western civilization is laughable. It's wild.
Right.
So keep that in mind when you're detracting from something that helped to build the civilization and that just brilliant men throughout time have poured over and found no fault or contradiction in it.
Right. Right.
Men like Paul Bunyan and some of these other men that we've talked about.
Right. We're going to use a lot of terminology here that we would consider to be. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. The mic's got a small delay. We're going to use a lot of terminology between you and I to speed up our conversations, and I think it's kind of cool to lay out some of this terminology here. So if I were to go down to verse 20 real quick.
Yeah, sure.
When God says, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that hath life, and the fowl, that's birds if somebody doesn't know, and fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven.
Yes.
So I do think that, you and I, it's pretty common vocabulary for us to say things like, oh, that takes place in the first heaven. Oh, no, these angels are in the third heaven and the second heaven. And so I think it's nice to go ahead and lay out why we're using those terms. So that people can see, and you and I might even see something different here. I don't know, but this is the way I viewed it, is in verse 20, when we're talking about the open firmament of heaven where birds fly. I've always viewed that as that first heaven. That's the sky that we can look up into. And then your second heaven is going to be where the firmament is. And then your third heaven is the waters above the firmament. Do you see it the same way as I do, or do you see it a little different than that?
I do see it. I see it very similar to that. I will add this just before I start with this and we'll get back to the water also.
Sure.
If anybody watches this, and who knows how many people may or may not watch this, but if you see anything or we talk about anything that we just fly past, or you're really interested in or have a question in, please leave it in the comments.
For sure.
We'll read them and we'll make notes of them. We'll get back to you. No matter how big or small it is, or if you have a question about what resources we're using or where we're pulling some things from.
Right.
Because we'll get to talking and go way past. You know what I mean? It's up to you guys. You guys pull us on back, and anything that we need to slow down and cover,
Right.
God knows, coming out of like a Southern Baptist church or Catholicism or something, here what we're talking about, it sounds insane. Just talking about the first few pages, but this is what the Bible says. There's Dallas Seminary can't they can't argue with what it actually says. They can argue feelings and they can use Schofield Bibles, but what the Bible really says is beautiful, and it doesn't need correction by men.
Agreed.
All right, so back to the waters. I've always wanted this myself.
Nice.
And we can talk about it as we go further in the Bible, especially when we get to where we talk about the deep and Rahab and some of the chaos monsters, and the verse in Isaiah, I can't recall exactly which one it is, that talks about that God doesn't create anything in vain.
Right.
And that in vain there, I believe, would be, wouldn't that be tohu or bohu? We're going back to verse 2 when it says the earth was without form and void. Now in Isaiah it says God does not create anything in vain.
Right.
So it would appear that something happened before Genesis 1:1, or in between Genesis 1:1 and Genesis 1:2, because if God does not create anything in vain, and the earth was without form and void, and darkness is on the face of the deep, it almost seems that the only thing that was left over from creation would be water and the land that would be under the water.
Right.
And there is entities that are talked about later, talk about the deep, and you'll hear a lot of people in the more fringe Christian community talk about the Rephaim. Well, it's the Rephaim, the dead things are formed,
Under the water.
deep. Yeah. But
No, you're fine. I was trying to say the verse with you where it says those dead things are formed underwater. I'm going to pull that verse up here in just a second. That way people know, and whoever does watch this can see where we're pulling some of these words from.
yeah, absolutely.
Let me throw the verses at you. I'd love to hear your take on this, because this just came to mind as we were talking about water. In 1 John 5:6 and in 1 John 5:8, I'll hit 8 first because I think it's the one that's probably the easiest to speak to. And there are three that bear witness in earth, the spirit and the water and the blood, and these three agree in one. I just thought I'd throw that out there to see if you thought maybe perhaps that gives us some insight onto what these waters are that the spirit is moving on. Just in verse 2 in Genesis, we have Spirit of God on the water. So you have 1 and 2 there. John 5:8, there are three that bear witness in earth, the spirit and the water. Then you have the blood, and these three agree in one. Whatever that means, these three agree in one. I mean, I think it's safe to say I'm not really too sure exactly what that really truly means. But I do think it's interesting that there you have spirit and water in the same verse. So I'm going to go ahead and look up that other one, the dead things formed. But go ahead.
Spirit, water, and blood, man. That's something
life
that really
is in the blood. Sorry, I'm connecting dots as we talk.
Life is in the blood for sure. And then talking about creation, Adam and Eve were flesh and bone, not flesh and blood.
Right.
Life is in the blood. I don't know. There is something about the blood that it resonates. We know that from with Cain and Abel.
Yeah, it speaks from the earth.
Yes. Yeah. Innocent blood. It's very, very interesting. It's almost like the blood is what ties us to this physical plane. It's almost like almost would be like the etherical fluid that keeps our soul within our body.
That's a nice way of saying that. I think in a nice, neat little wrapped up metaphor, in some ways it's also the waters that are holding up that firmament that also keep us in this type of plane. You see what I'm saying? Keeps us in the physical plane away from heaven. That's a neat thought. I'm so glad two people together. Yeah. That's so cool, bro. All right. The verse that you were referring to earlier is Job 26:5. It says dead things are formed under the waters and the inhabitants thereof. I think it's important to go to the dead things, which,
Raphaim.
yeah, where we're looking at the word Rafa, which literally means ghosts of the dead, shades, and spirits. Um,
If you go to the root of that, to Rapha, you get definitions like to heal and healer.
just pull. Keep
Yeah,
going.
and then you get when you talk about the archangels, like Raphael, is that's God heals or the healer of God. Um, so something about these dead things, this Raphaim, this Rapha, under the water, they're formed. So this is where they're formed at. It's somewhere under the water, and then you have that prefix of Rapha that means to heal. And I would also draw your attention to those that know about the David and Goliath story. That after David, it said David killed Goliath with the stone when it hit him, but afterwards he went and cut off his head. And it makes you wonder about certain fairy tales and stories to where you couldn't kill the monster unless you cut off the head. And you wonder if these Raphaim that were giants had the regeneration capability to where they could heal and they would restore themselves. It's very interesting.
That is interesting. Yeah, that is mad interesting.
But it's under the waters too. So I would also point out that anything that was alive that could breathe under the water did not die in Noah's flood.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're of the mindset and have read things like the Book of Giants and are the understanding of sinning against the birds of the air and the beasts of the field and that type of thing, and of the mind of genetic splicing being something that was going on in the ancient world, whether through sexuality or with scientific means. You get to you get to some real nasty stuff.
No doubt. No doubt. Yeah, that's it's nice to have a lot of these tools, man. I think.
But I would like to point out one more time that the dead things, the Raphaim, are formed under the water. So that's where they're formed at. So there's something under there.
Right, and that word said, you're talking about if you're going to take the root and then the secondary, it would mean healing ghost or healed spirits or what have you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's makes you wonder, why we're so focused on space and we, don't seem to put in the technology to get underwater.
That's the thing is that you talked about the firmament and the heavens, but the thing is when we're talking about the firmament, you have to talk about the water. So you have to start with the waters here. Now we've talked about healing shades and giants being formed under the water, and we haven't left the earth yet. Okay, that's just what's in the waters on the earth.
Right,
okay?
Right.
Now, when you get to the firmament is separating with waters above the firmament. Okay, and this is and you don't have to believe this way. This is what the Bible says. And you can take it however you want it. This is just what it says. Now, there is waters above the firmament, and then you start getting to the stories of the like Tiamat and Rahab. So there are things that I believe, and we talked about the deeps earlier. There are things that I believe that are living in the waters above the firmament as well. It's such a fascinating world that the Most High created for us, and I think a lot of times even people that believe in biblical cosmology, I believe they even look at it too small. Okay, I believe that the space nerds look at it as way too big, an infinite possibility of billions and billions of stars and all this goofy stuff, man. But also the people that believe in biblical cosmology, I believe, make it too small. I believe that it's a little bit more vast than what we realize. And when you start looking at the way history's been manipulated, and it's very easy to see that we might be only living on, now I'm just spitballing here. I have no information, but if you go down further enough down the rabbit hole, it's pretty easy to see how we may be only living on 75% of the land mass here that's, livable. You have reports from Admiral Byrd about, a temperate climate in the North Pole. I believe it was the North Pole. He went to both poles, so I believe it was on his flight to the North Pole. He reported a temperate climate. And there's been reports of a temperate climate in Antarctica, and but a lot of people try to make it so small. When you go through the Book of Enoch and the Path of the Heavenly Luminaries, it doesn't seem so small, and there's a lot of it's a more of an interpersonal relationship between what you see in the heavens, what we call the stars. There's a more of a spiritual, and there's entities that control all of these things, that are in charge of all of these things. And we'll talk about it more when we get into it, man. But when you're talking about the heavens and everything, it's a spiritual, physical, all in one. It's a meshing of all of that. All of creation is. You can listen to some of the people on DMT or ayahuasca, and they'll tell you they see geometry and
Right.
creatures and all this other stuff. It's not just the physical place. It's physical and spiritual. It's a meshing of both of those things to create what we call reality. And you can even hear from the people that have had after-death experiences.
Right.
The place I went to was more real than this place.
Mm.
So the thought that the spiritual is just this ethereal place, and it is in some aspects, but it's also very, very, very real. It may have some of the visuals of the fractal matrix, psychedelic type of stuff, but it's as real as you or I, or this couch, or
Sure.
this ball over here. It's very real, and
Right.
it works in tandem, spiritual and physical, to create what we see.
Very similar accounts from people too. That's what's wild about it, is that you hear about some outlanders or outliers that don't seem to really add up, but the vast majority that I've ever gone through, whether it be on YouTube or they used to do those little documentaries on Discovery Channel and stuff, whatever, of afterlife experiences, or DMT, quote, the
dream
spiritual
particle.
world. Yeah, exactly. And I used to, dude, I was hook, line, and sinker into those documentaries, man. I loved them. When Netflix,
And it's always interesting. It's always interesting to hear other people see and hear.
yeah,
They talked about certain things Christians will have a reaction to, and they'll see things that reinforce their faith and everything else. It's interesting when you hear from people that are complete non-believers.
That's what's crazy. Yeah.
That's the ones I want to hear about, because if they're seeing things, and they're saying that, hey, man, there's these entities here, and I think they're real and everything else.
Right.
They have no dog in the fight. It's actually going against their worldview to say these things.
Right.
So the Christian who believes in that, there's no bias there. It's actually going against what their worldview is. It's I believe there's value in here.
Agree. Yeah. Well, somebody once said,
and also knowing how to witness to these people and how to talk to your children about it, how to prepare them for it, because it's coming.
right.
If you haven't, DMT's coming. They have it in cartridge form. They have it in all. It's coming, and sons and daughters, they're going to be hands-on in the spiritual realm
and exposed to this on the daily, man. It's
exposed to from a young age, and will no longer be worried about what they see on the TV or the video games. You'll be wondering about what they're doing in their room and what entities they're talking to in their room. You no longer need the Ouija board. You can just plug straight in and go right to them.
Right. Okay? Right.
So it's very important to understand these things and know these things. So there is value in it, man.
Absolutely. And somebody once said, and I really like this quote, that the man of an opinion can't really speak to the man with an experience. You know what I'm saying? There's these people that are taking this stuff. It's not serious to them. You know what I'm saying? It's not like, oh, dude, I was so high. It's like, no, dude, this was real, and it's not just one guy saying it. It's everybody.
Talking about it like a high. I know me and you have had our history with things in our past, but They don't talk about it like a high. They talk about it like a spiritual experience.
Right,
It's a
right.
very, very different thing.
It might be
because
fun. One day
it
you and I should do some reaction videos to afterlife experiences and stuff like that on YouTube. That'd be fun.
Yeah, man. I've gone through a lot of them, and about 70% of them, the grift is real.
Yeah.
Grift is real. Now there's some real stuff, but the overwhelming majority are really hard grifters. But the ones that are real deal, their stories sync up pretty well.
Yeah, that's what I'd like to listen to. You know what I'm saying? The ones, and that's what I think most people do want to listen to.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. Just needle and haystack.
Yeah, right. I mean, a police officer gets to a scene of a crime and says, "What did you see?" And some people have a couple of corroborating stories, and then you got the one guy. It's like, "I saw a spaghetti monster jump off the building." Yeah, you're like, all right, that one. That's not what everybody else is saying. You know what I mean? So you can kind of weed through some of that stuff, but that might be really fun to do one day, bro. Where did we leave off? Are we at the beginning of the fourth day?
Talking about the waters and the
True.
firmament.
Yeah.
And to answer your question, the best I possibly can, man, I'm not sure about the waters, but they appear to be there before Genesis 1:2.
Yeah.
I can't say for sure about Genesis 1:1. I don't know if it's the beginning of a reboot, but I believe that's where he created the heaven and the earth, and then between 1:1 and 1:2, it seems something happened.
Right.
No, but as far as what the waters are and what they could be, your guess is good as mine, man.
Right. We get what it tells us, that he's not in them, he ain't drinking from them, he's on the face of them. But hopefully the more that we go through this, man, these little conversations, these little I don't know moments, we should be able to shine a whole lot more light on them throughout the way. I'd never even thought of the connection before, that maybe the water, blood, and spirit, had some type of connection with that before. It just never dawned upon me until we talked about it. So that's going to happen a lot, and that's
really. Sean says there's a connection. There is, man. I wonder I wonder how they all tie together, man. That'd be a good question.
I know. Yeah, I know.
Dive into. There's certain things in the Bible that you realize that if you could figure it out, it's like when Tesla said, if you understand the 3s and 6s and the 9s, you could understand, the way everything works. And I still haven't figured out the 3s, the 6s, or the 9s, and this may be in that same category, but that seems like they're two keys to unlock the mysteries of this world, is to understand these two questions.
Right. I think you're onto something when you say that, if you were to compare creation to a sweater, these seem to be the fabrics that it's made out of, the spirit and the blood and the water and things of that nature. It seems to be what binds us to this physical realm type of thing. And all right, let's get on to the next one if you're ready.
Yeah, man, I'm ready.
All right, so we got we got some great lights showing up in the sky. So we're in Genesis 1:14, and God said, "Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and for years."
All right.
And let them go ahead.
Go ahead, sir. I'm sorry.
Are you cool? "And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth. And it was so. And God made 2 great lights, the greater light to rule the day, the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also." I love how God's like just mic dropping in a way. It's like, yeah, I made the sun and the moon. They were so great, and I made all those stars too.
Isn't that so backwards to what we're taught today?
Right.
The sun, all these stars, like, oh, we have a small sun, and all these stars are so much bigger and so much more grand than everything else. But when you get to the Bible, it talks about a light for the day, which would be the sun, S-U-N. A light for the night, which would be the moon, which also, reading this, it says it's a light. It's not reflecting, it's its own light. And you know what I would like to do for this channel at some point, man? I would like to get one of those laser thermometers. Where I'm going with this. And I'd like to go take the temperature of the moonlight. I've seen experiments to where the moonlight is actually cooler if you're actually in the moonlight than it would be if you go like in a shady spot at night. It's like the light from the moon almost cools the earth while the light from the sun heats it up. It's a strange experiment, but I'd like to do it firsthand,
Dude,
just so I can
love
know
to.
what's
Love
true
to.
and what's not firsthand, because you do
Absolutely.
a lot of things online.
Dude, I'd love to do that because I've seen lots of research into it. I mean, we're in a lot of ways we're really alone in these thoughts. By we, I mean Christians as abroad. Like this is not something that ancient pagans debated about. This isn't something that ancient
Well, to
magi's.
to honestly to kind of push back on that a little bit, man. All of the ancients thought in this way at one point or another. The actual ancients, when you go back and look at how the Sumerians viewed the world, look at how the ancient Egyptians viewed the world. Most of them viewed the world this way until what was it in Greece? You know, and what was it around? I guess it would be after.
Yeah.
Well, it was before Alexander, right? So around what 300 BC.
Yeah. It's not Herodotus. What's his name, dude?
Is it? Good Lord. I'm sorry.
Just gonna Google some random stuff real quick.
A few years ago, I could have told
We
you
have
that.
Herodotus, but that's not the name I'm looking for. You have Pythagoras, of course.
Pythagoras,
He helped with all that too.
But you're looking for
Oh my gosh, dude. It's kind of embarrassing.
Socrates.
There's Socrates as well. That's still not the name I'm looking for. Who is the dude that did all the telescope and everything? I feel like it starts with the E, but
I don't know why I can't think of it right now.
yeah, that's so funny. It'll hit in just a minute. But anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, you're good, man. But no, all of the ancient cultures. If you don't mind, no, I'll see if I can pull this up and send it to you, man.
Go ahead. While you do that, I'll clarify a little bit of what I meant by that in regards to, you see, I know people personally. Obviously, I wouldn't drop any names, but I know people personally who buy into the heliocentric model or the geocentric model, and they go outside and soak up what they call moon rays. You know what I'm saying? They are of the understanding that moon ray runs on a different frequency, that it's not the same thing, that it has different effects on your body and your blood and even your eyeballs than what the sun does, and it's some of these other groups of people understand clearly that what you're getting from the moon is not what you get from the sun. You know what I'm saying?
So I hate to even say this, but with some of these concepts, it is a million times easier to talk to somebody that's a pagan or a witchcraft or agnostic or atheist than it is to talk to a Christian about something like this. I'm sending you what I was looking for there, just to show you some of the. It gives a visual representation of a lot of the ancient cultures and what they believed in. Hopefully we can use it. If not, then I'll try and screen share. But it's a lot easier to talk about these concepts with them because a lot of times they read the text more than the so-called religious people. So
Right.
It's a lot easier to talk to them because at least, whether they believe what you do or not, at least they understand. Hey, at least he understands what he's talking about. He's coming from a place of honesty.
Right. Exactly. Right.
So it makes it a lot easier to talk to them about some of these concepts.
Yeah, no, it surely does, man. What's remarkable just how much in a shell we really are in some of these thoughts, because I hate to use the buzzword that it's closed-minded, but it is very easy to speak to certain people about this. I mean, I'll just leave it at that. But
well, the Bible says, be as wise as a serpent and as harmless as a dove.
Right.
it's not good to be closed-minded in what you will research into, but when it comes to the Word of God, Christians need to be more closed-minded, in my opinion. When it says something, put your foot down, have some guts, and accept it. He is God and you're not, and this is what the Word says.
Right.
Your puny human understanding is nothing next to him.
That's true.
You have to put that first. If you can have that faith and accept that concept, a lot of the things that we talk about will come a lot easier to you.
Right.
Nothing that we're going to talk about is we're not making it up out of thin blue air. It's right here. And
no. And you and I both have a decent habit, I would say, to begin thoughts with the words "I think," or "I'm just guessing," or "I'm just throwing this out there, man." Or
yeah, it's never wrong to admit that, hey, man, I don't know. You can use context clues, and you can like we've talked about the waters and everything else. There's a lot of things that go into the waters and things that are mentioned, but that's thus thinketh Austin, not thus saith God. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly right. It's so cool. Where are we at now? Oh no. Yeah, we're still on the sun and everything. So let's keep the conversation going then. On Genesis 1:14, yeah, I'll kind of reread a little bit of where we were, where he's talking about God said, "Let the lights in the firmament be to divide the day and the night." That makes a lot of sense. Let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. And then again, he talks about, let them be for the lights in the firmament of heaven to give light upon the earth. And it was so. He makes two good ones: a great light for the day, a lesser light for the night. Oh yeah, and he also made all the stars over there too. That's kind of the attitude that it puts out there, but I think that's really funny personally. That is, you look up, you see a lot more stars than you do suns and moon, and that's what you get. You get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 words, and he made the stars also.
Yeah. A lot of times when they're talking about stars, it's also talking about angels.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Let's get into that.
Well, we can do a two-part. Let's start at the first part for the signs and the seasons, because this is important too.
Okay.
Now, I grew up in Church of God and Southern Baptist, and non-denominational that was closer to Pentecostal, very holy roller.
Right.
Anything zodiac was witchcraft. Okay.
Sure.
And they were right most of the time.
Sure.
For the signs and the seasons, the zodiac, or the Mazarah in Hebrew,
right?
Every culture has this with the 12 houses and all this. Every culture has that, and I believe that God did set it up for signs and seasons with the 12 houses and everything else like that.
Sure.
But I believe that how we're reading it has been corrupted.
Right.
And I don't think that we can read it correctly the way that we're supposed to. There are signs that we can still get that are supernaturally put into place, but I believe that the heavens, what I refer to as the second heaven, with all the heavenly luminaries and what we call stars and planets, I believe that we can't use it for how we were supposed to use it. And could you go to 2 Peter for me? And we could talk about why. I'd like to talk about the wandering stars mentioned there. I believe it's in 2 Peter that it talks about the wandering stars that are reserved unto judgment. I'd like to do just a small breakdown of this to talk about the signs of the seasons. And we don't have any of this planned. We're kind of doing this on the fly, but this would be good to cover the first part of that. Did you find it, sir?
Yeah. Can you see my screen on your screen?
I can, but I'm getting older and I can't see the words from this far away.
Got you. No worries at all. So what I've got for Wandering Stars, I'm in Jude chapter, of course it's chapter 1, verse
That works.
13, and we've got raging waves of the sea, foaming out their own shame. Wandering stars, that's with an A, wandering stars, to whom is reserved the blackness of darkness forever. But Austin, that just sounds like those stars are just up in the blackness of space forever.
Well, let's take a look at this. All right, let's go to. Let me pull this up real quick just to make sure I do have the right verse. Like I said, we don't have any of this planned. We are.
Yeah. And while you're doing that, I'll make a small statement about when I say those things about, but Austin, it sounds like space and stuff. I don't mean to be facetious or pick fun or anything. In a lot of ways, what I really like to do is that this is responses that we get as Christians when we read these things out and we are expressing our beliefs. And I think it's good to prepare yourself for questions like this. I don't know if it's always. I don't think there's anything wrong with just reading it just to read it, but I like to read it sometimes and read it as if I was someone who was trying to attack the word. And then I'm able to put myself in a place where I'm better to defend it. And whenever you're able to understand something's, I guess, for lack of a better term, weaknesses and strengths, all you're going to get from that is a better understanding and a knowledge on how to use it, on how to navigate your way through it. So have you found it? And I can rant forever.
Yeah, I've absolutely found it. You're absolutely right. Do me a favor.
Sure.
That, darkness. Can we look at some of these words real quick? I would like to see if it Tartarus is one of these words there.
Let's do it. I'm going to I'll go to blackness first. Blackness is 2217 in the G category. Oh man, how do you pronounce that? Zophos. Zophos, I guess is how you would say that. We're looking at darkness, blackness, used of darkness in the netherworld. Well, that's I read that and didn't realize what I was saying at first. That's kind of gnarly sounding. It's used of the darkness in the netherworld. All right, let's back up just a wee bit and we'll check darkness instead of blackness this time. Oh, excuse me. Here we go. Okay, this is Skotos. And
are you in the KJV?
I sure am, yeah.
I found it's 2 Peter 2:4. A lot of people relate this to that verse, and it is, for God spared not the angels that sinned, but cast them down to hell, and hell there is Tartarus, and delivered them into chains of darkness to be reserved unto judgment. Now, there's that wandering there. Now, what is that wandering? What is that word?
I'm going to open up hell real quick just to show that is Tartarus. Tartaro, that is Tartarus, the deepest abyss of hell. All right, I'll back up.
Yeah, as far as Greek, and I have my classical mythology book right here. As far as Greek, the mindset goes, it said that Tartarus was the prison for the gods.
Mm.
Okay? It's where the Titans, the Clash of the Titans.
Right.
It's where the Titans were imprisoned by the Olympians. Okay? It's said to have been in the Greek mindset as far beneath hell, what we would consider hell, Sheol.
Right.
As Sheol is hell from the surface of the earth. So it's supposed to be way down there, okay?
Okay.
All right, let's look at that wandering right there. I'd like to talk about that a little bit too.
All right, we're looking. Sorry, I only get this one verse at a time, so I have to scroll through this. Sorry.
Absolutely.
God's not the angels that sinned, but cast them down to hell and delivered them into chains of darkness to be reserved unto judgment. For wandering, are we back in Jude? Or am I
Yes.
missing something? Okay. All right. All
Yes.
right. I'm with
Sorry
you.
about that, man. I always get those two mixed up. Which one's where? I should have known that the Wandering was in
Oh,
Jude.
dude.
It's
Easy to do.
like a copy and paste of Enoch.
Very easy to do. You know what? Why am I going backwards when I can just research it? All right, and I'm going to take my tools and go through the Wandering, correct?
Yes, please.
All right, I'll reread
Also,
the.
if you have never had creatine in a DQ Blizzard, you're missing
Hey.
out.
Oh, yeah. That's
Yes, dude.
raging waves of the sea, foaming out their own shame, wandering stars to whom is reserved the blackness of darkness forever. And we click on wandering in the concordance that is G4107. That is Planates or Planates.
Okay. So let's look at the root of that. I believe that would be planeo.
All right. Root word for the form from the etymology. We are looking at planos or planos.
Yes.
Here.
Can we
You
can
might
we
be
get
able
the
to read
definition of
this.
that?
Yeah. Sorry, I was curious as to how he would say that. I didn't know he'd give me the code and everything. All right, outline of biblical usage. We have wandering, roving, misleading, leading into error, a vagabond, tramp, impostor, corrupter, and deceiver. This is the Strong's definition of this is of uncertain affinity, roving as a tramp, by implication an impostor or misleader, deceiver, comma, seducing, which is funny. Instantly my brain goes giving heed to seducing spirits.
Right.
But
Okay. So let me explain this to anybody who might have made it this far. This is your root word for what we call planets. Planets are not mentioned in the Bible at all. Okay. This is your root word for planets. Can we get that definition one more time that I'm telling you this?
wandering, roving, misleading, leading into error, impostor, corrupter, deceiver, seducing.
Yeah, that sounds about right. That's your root word for planets. Okay. This is where we get it from. All right. Wandering stars that are reserved unto judgment. All right. So I believe that what we're talking about here are these actual planets, what we call planets, and these planets are named for these ancient gods, the gods that have been around since the beginning in different names and slightly different practices from time to time. And when you get into some of the later stories, they kind of contradict each other. But these same gods have been around for a long time. They they named the planets after the gods, not the gods after the planets. Okay.
Right.
Now, what you're looking at there are these wandering stars. Okay, and I believe that you're seeing them in the outer darkness, but they still are seducing. And there are entities that are over these planets, and they're still seducing and having power over the earth to this day. And they have their minions on the earth, and they have the most powerful beings are the ones that are the principalities and powers in high places.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? This is what we're talking about here. When you look at that root word, that's where you get planet from. So when you talk about the planets, you're talking about a wandering deceiver, seducing spirit. Okay, and well, this goes back to what we talked about earlier. You have your physical and your spiritual, both existing at one time, creating the actual reality. Okay, it's the same thing. What you're thinking about, oh, but it's just rocks and all this. It may be. It may be. I've never been there. I
Me
don't
neither.
know. But what I do know is that it does have an entity over it. All of these heavenly luminaries have an entity that is in charge of it, whether it's moving it or whatever it may be.
Right.
Okay. So I just wanted to point that out when we're talking about the signs and seasons and what you're looking about in the heavens. And to put a bow on this whole segment is that's why I say that I don't believe that you can use the stars, and sometimes you can, but not as it was intended to. I believe it was supposed to be a perpetual calendar. No, and that we're supposed to be able to look at it and understand, weather patterns and what time of the year it was, when to plant crops, and all this just by looking at the stars. And I believe that you can do that to an extent today, but you can't use it the way it was intended to because of these wandering deceivers that we
Right.
call. So
Can we throw out a couple references there to back that theory in regards to that it is that Christians would have had this as a tool at their disposal? For instance, the first one I think of, feel free to add on, is that Jesus had a star that showed up in the sky, and that's how the three wise men tracked him down.
Yeah.
I think that's important to put that out there, is that, you're not just saying this randomly. You're not just saying, well, my name's Austin, and I think that the stars could have been this, and now we can't use them anymore. We have moments in the Bible that we can bring up where the stars were used, and there seems to be no punishment for that. The wise men weren't called sinners. You know what I'm saying?
This is something, and I have this right here, and I can reference it if anybody would like. This is the Genesis 6 conspiracy, and in this it has a section where it talks about how the patriarchs early on in the lineage of Adam was known for their ability to read the stars and to understand the signs and seasons from the stars. It was something that I believe that was taught to Adam in the garden. So there's we can go over that some more if you like, but yeah, there is precedence for that being a good thing.
Sure, and that's not worship. The observation isn't worship. Agreed?
No. Observation isn't worship. It's no different than looking at a calendar and saying, "Hey, man, it's January 14th. It's going to be cold outside." You know what I mean? Like, it's no different than you checking your Doppler radar going to the to see if you're a construction worker. You check the radar before you leave the house. See if it's going to be raining or muddy that day. If you need, your coveralls or whatever it may be. It's no different than that, man. It's just on a heavenly level and probably a lot more accurate if it, wasn't for the wandering stars that we talked about. And there's other instances of it, man. You have, right here we talked about it. It tells you it's for signs and the seasons. That's what it's for. Also for the new moons and for, we get into the Moedim and all that. Going forward, it's for all of that. It's for all encompassing. Signs and seasons, keeping of time, almanac, all of that is what it's supposed to be for. And we've lost some of those ways, some of the things you can still do, but I believe it was a little bit more than that before these wandering stars, and I think that they affected a lot of things even here on Earth. It could be weather, some cataclysm. Maybe that's what happened between Genesis 1:1 and 1:2. If there was a gap there, which I think there was, I think most people have come to that conclusion. Especially when you counter that with the verse in Isaiah that he doesn't create anything in vain. That's to me it seems like a no-brainer. I could be wrong. If you don't believe that, you can still go to heaven. It's not a big deal. It's just trying to make sense of everything and make sense of what we see with some of the older civilizations like Göbekli Tepe and things like that. You start to wonder, and was there something that happened there to where these planets, didn't, come forth at their, correct time, and it caused a cataclysm on Earth? It talks about a revelation, an angel hurling, a vial from heaven and, fire falling from heaven. There may be one of those entities, say Saturn, for instance. That maybe they decided to hurl a meteor to Earth. You know what I mean?
I think there's precedence for that, as it is naturally alluded in the Bible. This is my absolute favorite verse when it comes to thinking about this. What has now been coined the gap theory. In Isaiah 51:9, it says, and I think it's very important to look at this carefully. Awake, awake, put on strength, O arm of the Lord. Awake, as in the ancient days, in the generations of old. Art thou not it that hath cut off Rahab and wounded the dragon?
Woo!
That's a crazy verse, man. I mean, we're talking about God partaking in some type of battle in ancient
Rahab.
days. Yeah, put on your strength. You know what I mean? Um, Pretty wild, actually, there, man. You know what
He
I'm
is a
saying?
man of war.
Right. It's pretty wild there. So,
Yeah.
and I mean, this is written in Isaiah. That's a pretty long time ago. That's pre-Babylonian captivity. So, we're talking excess of 2,500 years from here. And even in Isaiah, he's saying in ancient days. And if that's not enough, he says in the generations of old.
Okay, is
This,
that in the ancient days? Is that Olam? That's
let's,
Olam. That's not even like back in the day. That's like way back in the
let's see.
That's
Hold on.
it's almost a phrase that's talking about the pre-flood world. Genesis 6 uses that when it talks about the men of old. The old there's Olam. That's not just old. That's real old.
What I've got here first, now this is just the first section. I can go to a second one in a second. We have something called Kadem, and that comes from something called Kadem. But let me go back one more time and find the other one. Let's see. Let's go to. We have ancient days and generation of old.
Check old.
Old. Yeah, that is indeed Olam.
No.
So we're talking
Old, most likely pre-flood.
Oh, let me put up the code for this. So it's H5956. I got to get better at that. A long duration, antiquity, futurity, forever, comma, ever, comma, everlasting, comma, evermore, perpetual, old, ancient world, forever, always, continuous existence, everlasting, indefinite. Yeah, this doesn't sound like it happened last week, bro.
No. When he uses Olam, that's what I mean. I'm not a Hebrew expert. I can just read. But when they use Olam, that's old. I mean, like, old. That's like 45 Morgan Freeman's old. Okay? I mean, it's real old. Like, when they talk about the ancient world, I believe that was one of the definitions there. Am I right?
For Olam, it
Yeah.
says ancient time long past, or excuse me, ancient time long time of past.
Yeah. A lot of
Oh
times.
no, I'm sorry. No, you're right. Perpetual, old, comma, ancient, comma, world. You're correct there. There's world there. I missed that.
Yeah. When you hear ancient world, okay, key words: ancient world, the golden age, antediluvian. Antediluvian just means pre-flood, but all of these mean pre-flood. Okay. When you hear about the golden age, it's always the pre-flood world. And when you hear the golden age, it's usually a new age. You're talking about Atlantis,
Right.
or Moria, or Mu, or one of these controversially, whether they existed or not, places. So when you hear the ancient world, that's what it's referring to, is the pre-flood days, the days when the Nephilim walked the earth.
Mm-hmm.
That's who their ascended masters are now, for the most part. Is these Nephilim that walked the earth in the ancient days. But yeah, when every time you see Olam, that's a long time ago, bro.
That's fun. I've never seen that before. I think it's really cool that you brought that up, because this section of our conversation got started when we were talking about the gap theory, which just to recap on that gap theory is saying that something took place in between Genesis 1 and Genesis 2 that made that earth null and void. That's what you were talking about when you said God makes nothing in vain. Why would he make a null and void earth? Like, he could have just made a totally fine earth if he wanted.
We've referenced that verse a few times. Do you mind pulling that verse up where he makes nothing in vain? If you don't mind.
Yeah, no
Because
problem at all.
I'd like to just to let anybody that's watching this, because I think I've referenced it like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah,
show it
we'll
to the
definitely
folks
do that.
and, let them check that out for themselves, just so they know that we're not just grasping at straws here. This is really what it says. I
Most
believe it's in Isaiah.
While I search for that, I'll finish this statement real quick where we're talking about something may have happened, and we're saying we showed that verse in Isaiah talking about awake, awake, art thou not he that slayed Rahab in the times of old and ancient days. Reason I brought that verse up was to give validity to the fact that maybe something did happen in between verse 1 and verse 2, because we're not necessarily told that, but we do have this verse. Now, when we found this verse, you brought up this word olam. And I think it's really neat to show right here in the Strong's definition. This is under the concordance. This is to the definition. What it says here is properly concealed, i.e., the vanishing point. So that's very, very interesting wording when we're talking about perhaps the earth being something and then it becoming null and void. The words used here is vanishing point. And so I'm just throwing that out there while I find that other verse.
I think that, and anybody's watching, leave it in the comments if you want us to do this. I think we could do a whole little episode on Rahab. I mean, Rahab is a chaos monster, and this is what I was referencing earlier when we were talking about the waters. And we got talked about Tiamat. Tiamat would be like the Sumerian version of what Rahab is. So if anybody out there is interested, and there's a lot more literature and people that have written on Tiamat than on Rahab, so you can ascribe a lot of the characteristics of Rahab from anything you read about like Tiamat. It's pretty consistent.
Yeah, I'd like to go through that with you I mean, definitely in the future, because that's one thing that hearing you talk about it, I can follow you because I know of this. I know of this conversation. I've overheard this conversation before, but that is one in particular that if you were to ask me to bring some things up, I got that Isaiah verse just because I think it's a really cool verse, but that's all I have. I'm not familiar. I know a thing or two about the Tobu Nabohu, but that's about it. So that would be a really fun time to do that. For the verse that you were referencing earlier, Isaiah 45 and 18. For thus saith the Lord that created the heavens, God himself that formed the earth and made it. He hath established it. He created it not in vain. He formed it to be inhabited. I am the Lord, and there is none else.
That's right. I am the Lord. There is none else. Love it. I love it.
Absolutely love that. Well, I think that wraps that up pretty good. Do you want to keep going to Genesis, or you got some more you want to do on the lights?
No, we can go back to that verse. That was the first part of it. We wanted to talk about the signs and seasons.
Yeah, man.
Let's see here. So we talked about the signs of the seasons, and then we talked about the lights.
Right, and he sets them in the firmament. That's about where we left off, right over there.
In the firmament. Okay, so let's do that one. Yeah, let's do that one. So apparently he sets these two great lights in the firmament.
Right.
In the firmament. So I would like to point out a couple things, okay? And this is kind of preaching to the choir, to the flat Earth choir. Now, I've at one point in time did call myself a flat earther, just to come out and say the truth. But I have had a change of heart.
Me too.
I don't think we're on a globe. I'm not retarded, but the Bible doesn't necessarily say that it is flat. Okay.
No. Yeah, you're right.
Nothing says that it is flat. I don't believe it's a globe, but I also, if anybody out there has gone down the flat Earth rabbit hole, anybody who is an honest person will tell you this is the God honest truth. Okay. No one knows what the shape is.
Right.
And this is the bottom of the rabbit hole. Okay, I'll save you the time. No one knows
right
what the shape is. From above the firmament, God looking down, it is a circle. I believe that's in Isaiah as well, the circle of the earth. Okay? Now, a circle is not the same as a ball. And Isaiah knew the difference. For example, in the Greek, there is gyros, which is circle, and there's sphera, which is ball or sphere.
I've pulled them both up. You keep going. I'm just showing it to them.
Now, when you look at the Septuagint is helpful because the Greek language is much more descriptive than the Hebrew. The Hebrew is a bunch of consonants with no vowels. Okay, and Greek is a lot closer to English. It's more of it's easier for a Western mindset to understand. For example, there's 3 different Greek words for wisdom, and wisdom in different types of ways. Okay, so using Greek here is very helpful because it talks about the circle of the earth, and it uses gyros there. And some people say, well, see, it's a circle. Well, a circle is not a ball. And they say, well, maybe they didn't have a word for a ball. And they do. Because Isaiah uses it himself later in the book, sphera, for ball. So it's not a ball, but from true north, it looks as though it's a circle. Now, we don't know the shape. Not totally. Nobody does. Anybody that tells you they do, they're a liar, or they know way too much and they shouldn't be talking. Now, anybody that's been to the bottom of the rabbit hole, and Bronson, I know me and you both have been way down there. That's the God honest truth, is that nobody knows. Now, what we can do is we can take what the Bible says and we can draw it out. And usually those, you look at it and it's fairly flat, and but it does have, elevation and everything else. But when you get into Enoch and the heavenly luminary section, it says that there's portals, is where the sun comes in and out of. So the flat earth model, to where they have the dome and they have the sun and the moon tracing each other, basically chasing each other around. That's not what it is. It's a good model just to show, and you can place that little yellow dot and the white dot over top of the UN, the symbol for the UN, which is, I think, is pretty close. But I mean, you can do that, and I mean, it's a good model just for a visible representation of how it could look. But that's not what it is. It goes through portals. It's once again the supernatural, the spiritual, and the physical combining to create reality. That's what it is. So, do I know exactly how it works? Nah. And let me tell you this: no one else does either. So, if you were ever getting down the flat earth rabbit hole, you're better off just not going down the rabbit hole, reading your Bible, and just believing what the Bible says, because you'll be farther ahead than about 90% of the people in that movement, and you'll be 100% ahead of anybody that's still on the heliocentric model. I think anybody that really reads the Bible and really looks at it with no cognitive dissonance and no but Neil deGrasse Tyson said it's a oblate spheroid and it looks like a pear. It's a little fat on the bottom.
Right.
Well, they've been showing us the blue marble since the 60s. So which one is it? Were you lying then, or are you lying now?
Agreed.
What doesn't lie is the Word of God. You can go to that. You can just look at what it says and just take what it says for what it says. And if it doesn't say it, it doesn't say it.
Here's a good verse that I found my second time going through the Bible, and when I found it, this is when I came to that realization where you're at right now, which is great, because the realization that I came to came from the Bible. I mean, that's what I just said. It's from the Bible. I didn't get it from anywhere else. In Jeremiah 31, verse 37, thus saith the Lord, if heaven above can be measured, and the foundations of the earth searched out beneath, I will also cast off all the seed of Israel for all that they have done, saith the Lord. That is to me, that's a threat. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's what's the word? An ultimatum in a way. Um, I, I'll just read that again. If heaven above can be measured, that's quite the task, and the foundations of the earth searched out beneath, I will also cast off all the seed of Israel for all that they have done, saith the Lord. I mean, you know, you can read that and say, well, the foundations of the earth searched out beneath. What do you need? A bulldozer and a shovel and a big old drill? Of course, we haven't done that. But at the same time, I mean, I also view that as we've tried to calculate this thing and the
Let me
size.
ask you something. It also says he inscribes the circle on the face of the deep. How do you inscribe a circle on an expanse?
Oh, internet's going slow. Did I hear the voice? Did I hear the voice? Deep sleep, avoiding darkness. I tried to look that up real quick. I couldn't find it. Um, inscribes a circle. We'll just go back and do circle again. But you know, I think that's a great place to consider is that we don't get a whole lot of creation, right? I mean, we're going through Genesis 1 together tonight, and we've probably only got about halfway through the first chapter, and who knows how long we've been talking about this stuff. This is all we get for creation. Creation stops. Essentially, you might get some more insight on some things throughout the Bible, but the narrative of creation stops very shortly after Genesis 1. And that being said, this is the one time, and that I think it's important to throw that out there. This is the one time we get where God has really created something in the book of the Bible, and that should show us just how great that is. You know what I'm saying? God doesn't just like throw in new iOS updates on Earth every weekend. This is something that He did once and then rested from His works. That should show just how important it is and how great it is. And to assume that you're just going to bust out your protractor and measure that out, I'm not going to call you weird or stupid for that, but it's a heck of a thought. You know what I'm saying? Something that God's created and done, and we're just going to claim that we understand some things about it. I mean, to each their own, I suppose. But I feel like it's a very special event to be commenting on personally.
Yeah, it is, and it also has just perpetually been okay, no matter what we do to the earth, no matter what's going on, the nuclear bombs and everything, and
Right.
creation just keeps on ticking, man.
Right.
Uh, the 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 sun and the moon being in the firmament, which is what I was going to say at first.
Yeah.
If they're just lights, a lot of the time we talked about flat Earth, and I got off on a little bit of a kick about that, but there was a reason behind it. And the reason behind it is if everything, the sun, the moon, the heavenly bodies, if it's in the firmament, then technically we could go there.
Okay.
A lot of times people get caught up in the space is fake type of stuff. And I know I thought along those lines for a little bit, but if everything is underneath the firmament, then it's reachable.
Okay.
Okay.
Which I mean, hey, hold on. The Tower of Babel, right? I mean, God said whatever they put their mind to, they're going to do it, and that tower was to reach heaven. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm with you on that. Again, every time we lay out a thought right here, all we're both trying to do for anybody who's watching this, we're both trying to put scripture to any thought we have. So when we say things like this stuff is reachable, he's not reaching, but for straws, we are going to use verses to back this up. When you have the Tower of Babel and it says that whatever they can do, whatever they put their mind to, they can do it. They are reaching towards heaven. You're onto something there. If it's within the firmament, theoretically speaking, it would technically be within grasp. I don't see a problem.
Yeah, because if we're in an enclosure, right?
Right.
And the sun and moon. Let's go back and read this verse in Genesis. I have the ESV, which I don't like a lot, but I thought I would just break it out for just a kind of a contradictory.
Sure.
for contrasting the translations. Let's see. And God set them in the expanse, this expanse again, of the heavens to give light on the earth, and the ruler of the day and the night to separate the light from darkness. And God saw that it was good. All right, so if you wouldn't mind, could you read Genesis 1:16 through 19?
Yeah. Starting at 16. And God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. And God set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good.
So they are within the firmament. Now, how far out does the firmament go? That it doesn't tell us. I believe that the firmament is attached to the earth, and that's what separates the waters above from the waters that we have here in our seas and oceans, rivers, lakes, and what we have in the atmosphere and the clouds, and what we have for the precipitation cycle. The firmament separates the waters from the waters, and the sun and the moon are in the firmament. Okay? The sun and the moon are in the firmament. Okay, so could we technically get there? Sure. Would there be anything to land on? I don't know. Say we go to the moon, what if it's just a light?
Mm.
There's nothing there. Now, have we not seen what looks to be, the moon almost looks like translucent. You see it during the day, and it looks like you can see clouds behind the moon. And I'm sure you've seen the pictures of this, but it would appear that to me, just with the naked eye, that it's just a light. Now, if there is a structure there, or if it is some kind of a rock or anything like that, they could be, but the Bible says that it's a light. It doesn't say anything about anything else other than it being a light. So if we went to the moon, could we even land on it? I don't know that we could. Creation is such a marvelous thing. And we haven't even got out of the first chapter of Genesis yet, and we've been talking for a long time. There's so much depth and so much that you can read from this and understand about the world that's around you.
Right. Yeah. I agree. While you're talking, I pulled up some footage from the Nikon Coolpix 900 just to show some pictures of the moon and stuff, just to see.
Yeah, just right here, you see the sky behind it. It's in the firmament. It's biblically in the firmament. If you want to argue from a different standpoint, if you're not a Christian, that's fine. I went to the same schools you went to. I learned the same things you learned. I like Star Wars just like you guys did before Disney ruined it. I like all that stuff, man. I'm a huge Stargate SG-1 fan. And I guess technically, that would still be within the realm of possibility, right? Interdimensional travel, which is what we were kind of alluding to with the DMT, the use of DMT and ayahuasca. It's almost a cheat code to the spirit realm.
Right, fast travel.
Yeah.
No doubt, man. No doubt. Before we move on, is there anything that we have forgotten to speak about, or anything you wanted to say that we haven't got to? I think one thing that's just fun to bring up is that so far we've seen God call everything good, but when he says, let there be a firmament in the midst of waters and let it divide the waters from the waters, all we get from that is, and it was so. Everything else, even the dry land, everything we see, it is good. It is good.
Would you like my speculation on that?
Dude, yeah, I'd like that.
Okay, we were talking about Rahab, right?
Right.
I hate to keep asking you, man, but you're a lot better at it than I am. Could you pull up something on Tiamat for me?
Got you.
The story of Tiamat, just so we can talk about this with some clarity. and I don't get anything confused because I have information overload and it's hard to keep track sometimes. I've messed up a couple times tonight. Like I said, we didn't plan any of this. This is all on the fly.
This is fun. Yeah, but it is Genesis 1. We have to set up the ground rules here. You know what I'm saying? And we're not going to be able to go 6 hours on one verse in Leviticus. I mean, maybe, but yeah. So I'm looking at it right now with Tiamat. I'll just start reading. It's got a couple pictures and stuff. You just stop me when you want to, okay? So we have Tiamat in the Mesopotamian religion is the primordial sea mating with the Apsu, which is the groundwater, to produce the gods in the Babylonian epic. So just right there off the rip, this is a creation god, okay? It is mating with Apsu, the groundwater, to produce gods, all right? Which translates as when on high. She is referred to as a woman and has at various points in the epic both anthropomorphic and theriomorphic features, including breasts and a tail. It has been suggested, without much supporting evidence, that there are two parts to the Tiamat mythos. In the first, she is a creator goddess through a sacred marriage between different waters, peacefully creating the cosmos through successive generations. So again, a creation god here. We're talking about creating a cosmos and whatnot. The second, I'm going to butcher this, is Chauskamp. Tiamat is considered the monstrous embodiment of primordial chaos. Some sources have identified her without real proof, is what it says in parentheses. Some sources have identified her with images of a sea serpent or dragon.
Yeah. Okay. Now, see what you can pull up on Rahab. And after we do that one, I'll put a bow on it.
Rahab is used in the Hebrew Bible to indicate pride or arrogance, a mystical sea monster, as an emblematic or poetic name for Egypt and for the sea. Rahab or Rakav really translates to spacious place. Is also one of the Hebrew words for the abyss. I've got a little more if you want me to go in regards to her being a sea monster. That's up to you.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, well, actually, look at Wikipedia. Somebody, look at this. Look at all the verses. Let's do some verses, man. We got Psalm 89:10. Thou didst crush Rahab as one that is slain. And they're using KJV. Give them props. Thou didst crush Rahab as one that is slain. Thou didst scatter thine enemies with the arm of thy strength. This may be in reference to that war we were talking about in Isaiah 51. Awake, awake, put on strength, O arm of the Lord. Awake, as in the days of old, the generations of ancient times. Art thou not it that hewed Rahab in pieces, that pierced the dragon? Job 26:12. He stirreth up the sea with his power, and by his understanding he smiteth through Rahab. Man, come on, dude.
Right. Okay. Now, can we look up the story for Tiamat? I believe it's with Enki and Tiamat. Maybe it's Enlil and Tiamat. Sorry, it's been a while since I've been through the Sumerian, but let's look at that story, and this will get us back to the firmament. Okay.
Let's see what I can do here. I'm not quite as good as old Jamie from the Joe Rogan show.
Jamie's a monster with it, man.
I'm saying. All right, I've got something with Enki. Did they not fight each other? Should I be typing?
Yes, that's what I'm looking for. The battle between either Enlil and Tiamat or Enki and Tiamat.
Enki versus Tiamat. And if it wasn't Enki, the word you're saying would be said Enlil?
Enlil, yes.
All right, I think I got there. We have Enki and Enlil are two Mesopotamian gods. And, oh, come on, get me where you need me to be.
Oh, man, it may not be either one of them.
No, this is not doing me fair. I'll read this to you real quick before I try to find a deeper thing. This might help you. As per this epic, Enki was the son of Tiamat and Aspu. Just for reference, we've been talking a lot for those that are listening. Tiamat and Aspu, that was the oceans and the lands that met together, the runoff that created God. So just keep that in mind. As per this epic, Enki was the son of Tiamat and Aspu. Even though Sumerian myth names him as the son of An, the sky god, and the goddess Namu, the ancient mother goddess, Aspu and Tiamat gave birth to all the younger gods, but their constant noise disturbed Aspu's peace, and he made up in his mind to kill them.
Well, that's contradictory to a lot of the stories. Is in the other stories, Enlil is the one that get tired of the noisy humans and sent the flood.
Okay.
Now, what I'm looking for is there is a story to where I believe Tiamat was killed, and they made like the sky out of the body and the land. It's been a long time since I've been through the Sumerian, so I'm kind of grasping at straws here. But this is thus thinking Austin again. Okay, all of this. But we were talking about Rahab and possibly the gap theory, and maybe the reason that the firmament is not called good is because, and this is like I said, just thinking Austin, is because that the firmament was made out of the remains of Rahab.
Oh, snap.
That's just a theory.
Okay, that's really neat. Okay, all right, hold on. Let's play with that for a second.
Yeah, like I say, we can play with it, but that this is not in the Bible. That does not say that specifically. This is.
Okay, I pulled up a picture real quick of King Tut's dagger. Back in a time when I referenced earlier, where I was just consuming documentaries as if it was cold water. This was years ago in high school, and I remember seeing this documentary on Netflix where they had found this dagger for King Tut, and there looks to be many of them now that I've Googled it. But there was a dagger there that they said seemed to be made out of some type of spatial material, something like a meteorite or something like that.
Yeah.
So I just thought I'd pull it up because I think that's interesting that a scale from Rahab, if this is a sea dragon, a scale from Rahab, I think it's reasonable, super reasonable to believe that that would have been an incredibly durable tool. I don't know if you can see these pictures here, but something that's supposed to be super old, like a King Tut old, those look to be in incredible shape. And to back up that theory that I just now put up there about that dragon scale would be really, really strong. When we get the talk about with Leviathan, and when it talks about his scales, dude, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
that picture that I sent you on Facebook, if you can pull that up here in a minute.
I was supposed to
because that will give. We're talking about possibly the firmament being made out of Rahab. There's a few photos on there that would lead you to think that the firmament would have been a entity, at least at one time, but like an actual creature. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes, I totally do. I've just got to find a way to get that off of my phone and onto this computer screen, but I will certainly do that.
Let me send you what I searched.
Okay.
And you could just do Google Images, and there's several of them that come up there, man.
I don't know how this is not fun. This is, to me, this is just so exciting, bro. I mean,
oh, man, I could do this forever, man.
Can you imagine having all these tools for research? I mean, we've got Hebrew and Greek and Google.
There is no excuse. There is no excuse for people saying they don't know or they can't see or anything like that.
Right.
You have no excuse.
At this point in the game, dude, it's a choice. I mean, I get it. That's a first world statement. I get it. Like, not everybody's got Wi-Fi everywhere. But at the same time,
if you have the ability to watch this on YouTube, you have no excuse. You have no excuse to be ignorant. You have no excuse.
It's a choice. It's just a choice.
It's a choice. It's about wanting to know your Creator. It's about wanting to know the truth.
Right.
You got to have a love for the truth. If you don't
Right.
have a love for the truth, you can't be saved.
Right.
Can't be
And
saved.
and I would even say a love for the search for the truth, a love for the conquest for truth at the same time. I mean, there's a lot of things I've been wrong on, but the search of it is, dude, that's gotta be
let me preface what I just said. It's not
Go
that
ahead.
Jesus won't save you if you don't have a love for the truth. The
Agreed.
problem is that you will not find Jesus if you don't have the love for the truth.
Oh,
You will be deceived if you don't have the love for the truth. And how many people get up there and says, "Oh, I cast out demons in your name. Oh, I
Right.
did this in your name and did that in your name." And he says, "What? What does he say, Bronson?"
depart from me, I never knew you, ye that work iniquity.
Right. And these are people that are casting out demons in Jesus' name. Okay. These are people that are doing works in Jesus' name. And he says, "Depart from me. You never knew me." With all the technology that there is today, with all of the resources, and you've seen it here. And me and Bronson aren't rich men. We're just regular dudes.
Yup.
And we have all of these resources. If you do not have a love for the truth, if you do not have a love for the Word of God, then you need to do some self-examination, especially with the way the world is right now. You don't have time. You don't have time to play around. You don't have time to go do things that are against the Word of God. You don't have time to be chasing after false doctrines. You don't have time. There's not time.
Yep.
You don't have time to get right later on. And I'm talking to myself here. You don't have the time. It's just not there. If you do not commit now and take a stand for the Messiah, take a stand for Christ being King, take a stand. Now is the time to put your toes in the ground and take a stand.
Agreed.
Stand in your own life, in your personal life, and get right in the personal level, then to go out into public life and to take a stand. And you will never do any of that if you don't have the love of the truth.
That's a fact, man. That's a fact. I mean, the verse we referenced there, Matthew 7:23, Matthew 25:41, Luke 5:8, Luke 13:27. That is, depart from me, all ye workers of iniquity. Just wanted to make that reference shown there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Good word, by the way. You're so right, man. Time is of the essence, and that's not a fear thing, bro. That's not a fear thing, but the deception that does come is crazy, right? It says that most people are going to be deceived except for the elect, and that
also
being said,
remember this, guys: the way is straight and the gate is narrow.
right? Many there be that find the way to destruction, but few there be that find that narrow way, bro.
Right, and it's just a remnant, tiny remnant. That's all that's left in the end, just a tiny remnant.
Mm-hmm.
So this isn't for everybody. This is for the elect. I'm trying to be the elect. I hope you are trying to be the elect.
Yes.
This is what we're called to do. This is why we were created: is to search out His Word, to live for Him the best that we can, and to be an example. And the biggest thing in today's world is to not be a coward. Don't be a coward. Don't be a sniveling punk hiding behind your desk, scared that you're going to say something to upset the HR lady.
Right.
If you can't boldly speak about Christ where you're at, then you're in the wrong place. You saw Peter, when Jesus was first starting his ministry, he said, "Lay down what you got going on and follow me." And Peter didn't say,
Right.
"Yeah, but I got to cast this net a couple of more times. I got bills to pay, man." He didn't say none of that. He just put the stuff down and followed Jesus. And who was the rich man that came to him and said, "What can I do to follow you?" He says, "Put down all your material possessions and follow me."
Yeah. And he did everything right before that. He said, if you desire to be perfect, this is what you're going to do. Everything he did else was correct, man. He followed all those commandments and done it all right. But Jesus' words to him, if you desire to be perfect, sell all that you got and come on with me. And he walked away sad, for he had great possessions. And that's when he says, how rare will it be that those that are wealthy make it into the kingdom of God? And again,
gamble through the eye of a needle. Yeah.
right. And if it be so, Lord, who then can be saved? With man is it impossible, but with Christ all things are possible.
It is possible.
Yeah.
Right. So if you have a problem speaking up or being, where you're at, and you grow some, you know what? Speak your mind when something is wrong. It's time for men to be men and women to be men. Women to be men. No, that's already happened, guys.
Yeah, 2024.
Yeah, it's time for women to be women and men to be men. And if you're a man and there's things going wrong, that are rolling wrong around you and affect your spirit, you need to stand on it. The problem is in our culture right now is a lack of men putting their foot down and saying, no, that's wrong, and it's not going to happen. Doesn't matter who breathes, who screams, and who's mad. You got to have the love and the truth in you, and have some guts, and take a stand. It's that time. It's that time. It's that time. You have to make a stand. Where you're at work, or you're even if you're out, yeah, it's time to make a stand. It's time to be known. It's time to be loud. Make a stand. Get some fire about you. Love the truth, and make your stand wherever you are, whether it's on X, Facebook, in the workplace. Christ is king, and it's
Right.
Christ is king everywhere.
Hey.
In the king everywhere. So, and the more you hold yourself to that standard, the more you won't want to commit these sins that hey, I shouldn't be doing this, but it'd be all right. Grace abounds, right?
Right.
Or you hold Christ as king and let him be king over your life, and let him be king over your life while you're at work, and let him be king over your life when you're in the car, let him be king over your life when you're upset with the kids or with your woman or whatever it may be. The more you make him king of your life and you proclaim that outwardly, you're going to have to live up to that inwardly. I hate being the hypocrite. The more I proclaim these things and say these things outwardly and everything else, the more I have to live with it inwardly and do the right things and make the right decisions, because I can't live as a hypocrite. I love the truth.
Right. Right.
So sorry, a little bit of a rant there, man, but I just I get a little
I'm with it, man.
I get
I'm
my
with
feelings when I see a lot of Christians being cowards, and over the past couple of weeks, especially online, seeing finally some guts rise up in the Christian community is nice to see.
Feels good. But no, yeah. I'm with you, man. The whole way through, I've been, at this point, if you're watching, dude. You're good for you. If you're listening, that's fun too. But as you've been talking,
we can clip this up, man. We'll send it to Dallas and get him to clip some of it up and everything. And
yeah, no, that's great, man.
Try and make some sense of the ramblings on my end.
No, dude, it's not that it doesn't make sense at all. I've just been letting you know I've been pulling up every verse you've referenced. You know what I'm saying? They're all on screen. I just didn't.
Dude, bro. I would have sat here forever doing it, and I'm sorry for anybody that's watching. I know that I talk on several things and then I go back, but there is so much depth. Like I said, we're not even,
Oh,
we're not even close to chapter 2, and we've covered all this. And honestly, it's important. This is the basis. If you don't have a basis on creation and who the creator is and what the creation was for, then you're going to fall for anything. This is baseline, okay?
It's chapter 1, no pun intended.
We've been talking for almost 3 hours, and it's chapter 1, and there's a reason for that. It's baseline. This is baseline knowledge. If anything we've said tonight you don't know, you need to dig in. You need to dig in and find out about your creator.
Right.
This is baseline. This is the milk, okay? This is the milk. So when you start getting to Deuteronomy and Leviticus, you start getting into the meat and everything else. But this is the milk at the beginning, okay? This is telling you the baseline. The baseline of the creator. Can you pull up a KJV Psalms 19:1? While we're on the firmament, let's just go ahead and get this let's just go ahead and get this out there, okay?
If I'm not mistaken, this is the one where they say, if you're in trouble, call Psalm 911.
No, this is 19:1.
Yeah, okay.
This is the verse that is on Werner von Braun's gravestone.
It's up there. You want me to read it?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. This is to the chief musician, a psalm of David, Psalm 19, verse 1. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork.
There you go, guys. So the firmament showeth his handiwork. And that was on the gravestone of Mr. NASA himself, Wernher von Braun.
Mr. I have become destroyer of worlds.
That was actually Oppenheimer.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, you're right. That is my mistake. Thank you for the correction.
Wernher von Braun was the first person to make a rocket that went into the atmosphere, quote unquote. The V2 rocket, and I believe the Saturn V rocket. Wernher von Braun was, I believe, the head of NASA at the early stages of NASA. He was also a Nazi in Nazi Germany with the V2 rocket and the Saturn V. He was a scientist in Nazi Germany and was brought over here in Operation Paperclip. Now, the fact that this man, who was Mr. Space, went to Antarctica before they had the Apollo missions looking for moon rocks. Now, if you know, the Apollo missions was the first time we supposedly went to the moon. So before we went to the moon, we were looking for moon rocks in Antarctica. And I don't know how you can tell that a rock is from the moon. I don't know if you just picked up one and it said made in China on the bottom of one of them. And you got the one that said made on the moon and said, oh, man, here's a moon rock. So I'm not sure exactly how they knew that rock was from the moon, but they were looking for moon rocks. That's a fact.
Right.
In Antarctica, of all places. But this guy, I believe he was the head of NASA during the Apollo missions. He had that verse we just read, or the Bronson just read, Psalm 19:1, the KJV version, that the firmament showeth his handiwork on his gravestone. Now, for somebody who was apparently in a space program where there is no firmament, where we're spinning on this spinning ball going through the galaxy, that's a strange thing to have in your gravestone.
Agreed. That is a very solid point there.
Well, I believe that would be the last of the firmament verses in Genesis. So I wanted to throw that in there just to give everybody a little bit of research homework. You can check see what I'm saying is right, and go look for yourself.
Right.
Here we go. Now,
took a second. Sorry, I've been working.
You are the man. All right, so let me lean up here so I can see. All right. Now, do you see the Ouroboros around the third one on the top row, third one from the left? See the Ouroboros, the snake eating its tail right there. So you have a serpent as the firmament there. You can see in a couple of these. Now, let's see, the one, go down just a little ways. Right there, far left, in the yellow. Yes, can we plug that up just a little bit? There's Egyptian. And do you see like the snake scales going over the top there?
Yes.
And I believe that's a head that's on that. So it would, a woman's head, right?
Right.
Okay, so there we go. There's, now is there a Sumerian? I believe Sumerian is on there. Let's take a look at that since that's where the Tiamat story is.
Hold on. Sumerian.
But you can see a couple of them.
I do not see Sumerian on this in particular list. Although I think it's fun. Let's just go ahead and pull up the Hebrew one. And that's the Hebrew is the one on the right versus the one on the left. Funny what you mentioned earlier. This is what we would say Sheol is right here, and that's not me making that up. That is a Sheol, and here's a realm beneath that. And you were alluding to that earlier about something being deeper beneath Sheol. That was Tartarus, correct?
Yes, that'd be Tartarus. Tartarus is the Greek, like the Greek word for the prison of the angels. I know there was a few more on there, but yeah, but what I was saying about my thoughts about Rahab being maybe the firmament was made out of pieces of Rahab, or somehow is included in the pieces of Rahab was included in the firmament, would be because he says everything else is good except for the firmament. So if it was made of a piece of a chaos monster, then it may not be good because it has that corrupted entity.
Very interesting.
So that was my thoughts on it. That's the only thing I could think of about that. But when you see those pictures with the stories of Rahab and Tiamat and that type of thing, it's a possibility, but it's simply conjecture. But please do your own research, check it out, see for yourself. Yeah.
This is it, right?
Sumerian.
Yes, I've got a couple of them pulled up.
Yeah, and see, all right. So let's go through that last one, brother.
Okay, let me go back.
Okay.
You see that pretty good?
Yeah. All right. See, let's go down to the bottom in the underworld.
Oh, my fault. Let me back
It's
that up.
Yeah, dealing with Google's tough, man. Oh, you're on Bean.
Here we are.
Yeah.
Dude.
No.
Why is it being this way? Here we go.
I don't know, man. All
right, that's locked in. We're not going anywhere.
Can we zoom in on the underworld there?
We can certainly try.
If it doesn't work this time, I'll just explain for business. Okay, that would be, I believe, Enki in the underworld, and you have Enki, and what the waters underneath there coming out from there is what they call the Abzu, or the abyss. Anytime in ancient Sumeria, you will see depictions of Enki coming like through a doorway with these ripples around him. And what that is the waters of the abyss. All right, can we scroll up just a little bit? We have some kind of griffin creatures there in I believe that would be the first heaven. So let's go up. And then you have the second heaven there where you have the sun and the moon. And then you have the deity, which would be, I assume, the Sumerian version of a Ra, almost. I'm not sure.
Probably a sun god.
Yeah. I'm not sure who that would be in the mythos. I don't know if that would be Enlil or and above that in the third heaven would be, I believe, Anu. But it's funny to see.
Question: do you see how the character we're assuming to be Anu in his own area? Oh, check this out. I just noticed if you look around them, those are what I'm assuming to be constellation figures with the ram and the lion. That's kind of neat. He's got these ripples coming out of him the same way this individual does down here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there is a place where no. There doesn't seem to be a place where they meet together to do something special, but you did a good job explaining the ripples coming out from this individual. Do you have any explanation for what's going on up top?
I don't have an explanation for what's going on up top. I believe what they're trying to explain is that the first, second, and third heaven that we've talked about, and I believe this is a representation of that.
Yeah. If I had to guess, I'll throw a guess out there for funsies. He's got that little light coming on the top of his head. That usually is a symbol for, illumination or enlightenment. This may be some type of illuminating light that he is using to shine some type of wisdom or something upon the people in the creation. Just a guess.
Honestly, this diagram right here, I'd like to do a whole breakdown on this and really look into it, man, because it does have the heavens broken down into 3 parts.
Right.
I mean, it's a pretty good representation of what we're talking about here. But we talked about earlier that all the ancient cultures, this is what they believe. This is what they believed.
Yeah, this is the Fertile Crescent. You know what I'm saying? We are right here in the beginning of civilization as we know it in regards to people coming together, not so much isolated. This is where the Tower of Babel took place.
Yeah.
A general location.
You can go to the Incas or the Mayas. I mean, on that last chart we had, I mean, it's the same thing.
It's the same thing, bro.
It's the same thing. No matter where you go in the ancient world, yeah, I mean, it's right there. It's the same thing. Okay.
Right. It's the same thing.
The founding gods of their religion are the serpent gods. the plume serpents, aka the dragons. They're,
Check out the Navajo. Look at the Navajo one.
yeah, it's not. It's the same thing. It's the same thing because this knowledge came down from the same place. All of
Right.
these ancient people were closer to the creation than me and you are. They were separated by thousands of miles. They all had the same understanding.
Right.
There's no deviation. This isn't coincidence. It's because this is what was passed down to the earliest peoples because this is what they understood the world to be.
Right.
From the golden age to to Greece, it was all the same. When you look
Right.
at Martin Luther and his quotes on cosmology, what you're looking at on your screen, the Hebrew one, that's what Martin Luther believed. Yeah, that's the Hebrew one right there. That's what Martin Luther believed. And you can see over here on the Greek one next to it, there's Tartarus right there at the bottom. Yeah.
And it's black. black.
That's it. That's
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
I'm
So,
glad you said that, man. That was really helpful and insightful there. That's nice.
yeah, so with the firmament, why it maybe not be called good? Maybe it's made from pieces of that chaos monster Rahab that was killed and cut into pieces. Because it was.
I gotta tell you, man, that is a lot deeper and very interesting. Much deeper than what mine was. And I've always just taken it without, like I said, I know a thing or two about the conversation when it comes to Tiamat and Tobit Nabohu and all that stuff. But what you did just now, I couldn't have done. That was very, very impressive. And it's not even like you're the one using Google. I'm fact checking you. But
Yeah.
so nicely done on that, my friend. I've always looked at it as it wasn't good simply because this is the mark of separation between God and his creation. Yes, he resides above the firmament and the rest of it is beneath. And
Well, yeah.
you know what I'm saying? And he's in the
this
garden. You know what I'm saying? He wants to be with his
this is
creation.
what we need to also think about. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but let's think about this though. Is it doesn't really well, it does cut us off between us and the third heaven and God, but the reason for the firmament was to separate the waters from the waters.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, that just so we can have a dry place where we can breathe the oxygen and we're not overcome by the waters, or the more esoteric view, not esoteric as a magical, but the more hidden view, which you can look at it is maybe he's protecting us from something that's in those waters. Maybe Rahab wasn't the only one that was like that. Maybe there's
Full
something
circle.
else. Right.
Full circle.
Right.
What is formed in the waters. I mean, we talked about this already, you know.
Right, and that was formed in the waters on the earth. We're
On
not
earth.
talking about the heavenly waters.
Right.
So now, do you want to keep going with Genesis, or would
Dude,
you like,
yeah.
or would you like to veer off into the Apkallu, since we're talking about water anyway?
I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't know what that word means.
The Apkallu, the bringers of civilization after the flood. Like Dagon would be like an Apkallu.
Okay.
The like these fish gods, the Apkallu, and I believe it was Babylon. They came out of the river. We could do some of that if you'd like, or let's keep going with Genesis, man. We can do let's do a
Yeah, we're almost done with Genesis, and if we want to go on that water route, I think it's good, seeing as what we're about to see, like in Genesis 122, the birds are created from the water. You know what I mean?
okay.
So
Well, I tell you what, let's do creation, and then we'll jump to Apkallu when we get to Genesis 6.
Let's do it. All right.
That's okay. All right, give me 1 second. I got to use the restroom, and I'll be right back now.
Go ahead, man. Do your thing.
All right, brother, I'm back.
Yes, sir. All right, so we're in Genesis 1:20. And we're almost done with this chapter. And God said, "Let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that have life, and fowl that may fly above the earth and the open firmament of heaven." And God created great whales and every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth abundantly, after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind. And God saw that it was good. And God blessed them, saying, Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters and the seas, and let fowl multiply in the earth. And the evening and the morning were the fifth day. And God said, Let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind, cattle and creeping thing, and beast of the earth after his kind. And it was so. And God made the beast of the earth after his kind, and cattle after their kind, and everything that creepeth upon the earth after his kind. And God saw that it was good. And God said, Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him, male and female created he them. And God blessed them, and God said unto them, Be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. And God said, Behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree in which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for meat. And to every beast of the earth, and to every fowl of the air, and to everything that creepeth upon the earth, wherein there is life, I have given every green herb for meat. And it was so. And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And the evening and the morning were the sixth day. That concludes
All
the
right,
chapter.
let's go back there.
Sure.
Wait, well, I don't want to take a long time with this, but could you reread after people were created? What was? Let's see what the command was then. It was be fruitful and multiply. What else was that?
Sorry, I've stumbled over myself. Give me 1 second here. Let us make have dominion over the air, every creeping thing. God bless them. Here we go. And God blessed them, and God said unto them, Be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth. Subdue it. Have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth.
All right. Let's keep in mind what was told. It says man and woman were created at the same time, right?
Right.
We're told be fruitful, multiply, and take dominion over basically everything on the earth. Okay.
Right.
All right. So let's keep that in mind for when we get to Adam and Eve, and let's see what was told to them after they were created.
Right. I think that word replenish, man, that's something else there. I mean, given all the things we've already talked about with Rahab and this possible battle that, may have taken place in between Genesis 1 and 2, um, something going on there that made the earth null and void. I mean, you're talking about a giant sea creature who some religions credit creation as in a giant battle with God. We read verses tonight that said that he cut that beast, so they were actually fighting. This could have been a battle that would have destroyed Earth. And when God has fixed it up the way he likes it and puts people back on it, or excuse me, people on it, what he says is replenish the earth. I just think that's a neat word to use there. I'm not sure what other translations say, but replenish that's a heck of a word.
Another thing with Rahab, I believe Typhon would be another creature like that. And I believe Hercules had to fight Typhon, right, as one of his the 12 tasks or whatever it was. I believe that's another story that could be related, but that's neither here or there. But yeah, the Adam and Eve seem to get different instructions.
Yeah, here is the Typhon. I've got some of his images pulled up here.
Now, did Hercules battle this?
When I typed in Typhon Hercules, this is what I got.
Right. So that was one of his. What were they called? It wasn't task. It was something else.
Quests or something. I'm not sure.
Something like that. Yeah. But yeah, that would be another monster that would be similar, I believe, to Rahab. But Tiamat is the closest thing that has some research that's been done on it.
I pulled up. Let's pull up this replenish real quick. The replenish is H4390. Oh, excuse me. I've messed this up here. Oh, hey, here's a fun fact. I found this on accident. Genesis 9:1. When Noah and his sons, God says unto them, "Be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth." That's the same exact code we just read for replenish in Genesis 1. So replenish is a neat choice of words. I've never noticed that before. I've never caught that was the same exact code for replenish, which is H4390.
Yeah. Now,
so
yeah, sure.
No, you're cool. That is Malay or Mala. This just means to consecrate or accomplish, replenish. I mean, satisfy, overflow. It's just to be filled, to be armed, to be satisfied, to fill. I mean, I suppose you could say, well, it just means to fill, and that's okay. I mean, that's okay. There's no problem with that. I'm not going to argue with that. I just think that it could have said, "Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth."
Instead of
replenish. I mean,
when you think of replenish, you think like, "Oh, I'm going to refill."
Right, exactly. I'm hungry.
When you look at the definition, it's hard to say that because it says to fill. But when you're looking at replenish, you think like, "Oh, you got to refill it."
Sure. Yeah. I mean, and right here it says to consecrate, to be at an end or to be expired, to be fenced. I mean, I think there's an argument to say that there is a context to that word replenished, even here in the Strong's definition, that it had been filled at some point, it had been expired or to be fenced, and now it is going to happen again. And the fact that is the same word that's used in Noah's flood, which is cool. Like, there's another thing I learned tonight. I did not know that was the same.
They really are refilling the earth there. It's the same term. That's definitely used there. Yeah, for sure.
That's fun. That is fun. And that's why I'm doing this with you, man. I mean, dude, I've learned a lot tonight. This is legit chapter 1, bro. Like, we haven't even got into.
There's a lot to go through it, man.
Yeah, man. This is so cool.
I'll be excited to go back a year or two from now and do this again and see what we can get out of it and see what we can learn. All right, brother. Well, do you want to keep on going with chapter 1? Let's go ahead and just finish it out, man.
Yeah,
and I'll take a couple notes and we'll just go back just so we can get chapter 1 in the books and move on to something else.
Agreed. So I mean, we basically finished it, man. I mean, we've got the beast and the fowls. I did want to point out one thing that I never noticed before, just to get your hot take on this. Okay. This is speculation. It's just something I never noticed before. So in Genesis 1:24, this is when we are starting this section of creating beasts and living creatures. So this is directly after, and the evening and the morning were the 5th day. Boom, verse 24. Here we go. God said, "Let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind, comma, cattle and the creeping thing, and the beast after his kind." And it was so. Is there any type of living creature that is alluding to that is not what we see later? I mean, he says, "Bring forth the living creature after his kind, cattle, creeping thing, beast of the earth," and it was so. I mean, is there anything else other than what you're seeing listed here being created? I'm just throwing an idea out there. I mean, just what do you make of that? I mean, it might sound a little silly, but no stone uncovered.
the kind thing, do you notice how many times it says after its own kind, after its own kind, after its own kind, after its own kind,
I mean,
over and
yeah,
over and
yeah,
over and over again?
right.
That's for a reason. Okay.
Okay, hit me with it. I'm interested to see what you say about this.
Well, we talked about earlier a little bit, and for anybody who's still watching all this time, where we clip this up, the Book of Giants, where it talks about genetic modifications, and then you have centaurs, which are essentially a genetic splicing between humans and bulls or horses. You have the lion men of Moab. You have
Right,
Genesis, which talks about them sinning against the birds of the air and the beasts of the field and all of that. God created creatures to be what they are and to not be anything else.
mm,
Um, this is okay. Genesis was given to Moses, right,
right,
from God after all of this happened. So God is putting emphasis on that He created each one of these creatures to reproduce after its kind and to basically stay in its lane and to be after its own kind and only after its own kind. You're
right,
not supposed to mix animals with animals. You're not supposed to make all this GMO food. It's supposed to be a kind after a kind after a kind.
right,
When you read the Book of Giants and then you talk about the sons of God mating with the women of the earth, and you talk about all these kinds that aren't of the same kind, creating a new kind, it is abomination. It is what brought the flood. A lot of people, even in this community, believe that the giants and what they were doing brought the flood. The giants, the first and second generation Nephilim, were wiped out 500 years before the flood. It said that the people were kept on sinning against the beasts of the earth and the fowl of the air. They were continuing on with the genetic splicing program and making themselves transhuman. And
right.
God said, I am God and you're man, and my spirit won't abide by man forever, basically. And then you give 120 years until the flood. All right. And we're doing these type of things today. So when he talks about in that verse, when it's so much emphasis on a kind after a kind after a kind after a kind, I believe, and this is me thinking, but this is to me the only logical thing why it's said like this is because the sin of the Nephilim and the people following in the footsteps of the Nephilim and later the Rephaim and certainly with the centaurs and all that type of stuff. The the other side, as Cat Williams would love to say, the
Right.
other side was big fans of genetic splicing. God, not a big fan of genetic splicing. So I
Right.
believe that's why so much emphasis is put in those kinds, is because we're supposed to not play God in that fashion.
Agreed, 100%.
Does that answer what you were talking about?
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, absolutely. I'm just any type of observation to make and any type of question. You know how sometimes you'll be reading the Bible and you'll look at something and you go, man, I wonder about that. And you think about
Yeah.
it, you think about it, you think about it, and you're like, well, I guess it's just something to wonder about. Having somebody there with you, you know what I mean, to throw these ideas out and just say, well, what's your knee-jerk reaction to this idea? I mean, it's priceless to me, man. So yeah, I appreciate your input on everything. But
Yeah, for sure, man.
so we are talking about making the beasts and everything in their image. The beast is after their kind, cattle after their kind. We're here. God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness." I like, I don't. There are some things that, like you were talking about earlier, this is milk. I mean, if you've been around this stuff at all, there are some things that it's not that it's not important. I just don't necessarily. It's just been said 100 times. You and I can get into what does this mean. Let us make man in our image after our likeness. You know what I'm
This is
saying?
well. This is a serious. This is a serious verse that's a point of contention. So, do you want to let's unpack it, man? Let's
Well,
unpack
sure. Yeah, dude. Why not? I mean, I'll tell
it.
you where I was first time I read this.
Sure.
this is again the very same day that I was referring to earlier when we first started this, that I picked it up, blank slate, anything's possible. I'm just going to read this thing and try to figure it out. And this is one of those verses that kind of messed with me a little bit. I asked the question,
Yeah.
who is us? Who is our? I mean, is he talking to angels? Is he talking to Jesus? Who in the world is he talking to? We have no other characters listed in the
Well,
Bible so far
let's
other than God and the Spirit that's on the waters. That's what you got.
let's look at that verse and let's pull up. I know what it is there when it says let us make them in our image. It's saying Elohim, so it'd be plural. Um, this is this gets hard for a lot of Christians who were raised like I was raised, and there's only one God and all that. But the Bible does refer to these other beings as gods. They are subordinate to our God. They're angels, but they are referred to as gods and gods of the nations. And there's precedence for this, and it talks about the council of the Elohim in Psalms. And so people need to understand that you know the spiritual world is a big world. It's not just the God, devil, and a couple angels, and that's all. No, this is a vast world that has entities over everything that makes this place run. If you imagine the Earth as imagine it as a very intricate clock, and
Right.
every spring and every gear has a angel over it. Okay,
Right.
you find places in the Bible talk about the angel of the bottomless pit, the angel of this, and angel. Yeah, that's each function of this place has a supervisor, you can think of it like that, over it.
Nice. Yeah, good word.
Right?
Supervisor.
Now, what was the extent over all of these? A lot of people say that Elohim would just be the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, talking among themselves, which they very well could be. But you'll get this argument from a lot of polytheists, a lot of New Age people, a lot of atheists and agnostics about this verse. And if you're going to be witnessing to people, you need to understand this verse. You need to understand it in and out because it will be used against you. Okay? So you could say this: the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit talking amongst themselves. That says Elohim, and you could say that was the gods of the nations. It's used like that also. So it's best to be honest with people and say it could be a couple of things. It could be God talking to himself, or there is parts of the Bible where it talked about the morning stars saying at creation. And in Genesis, it said, "Let there be light." God spoke all of these things into existence. So could God have used other angels to sing and use that voice in their that frequency and work together with them to create mankind? Could that have been possible? Sure. He's the master of all things. It's definitely a possibility. I don't know if you want to pull the verse where it said the morning stars sang in creation. Well, if God spoke it into existence and they were singing, it goes to stands to reason that they possibly could have been singing while he spoke into existence, and he used those frequencies in some fashion to create mankind.
Right.
So
here's some verses to back up what you're saying so far. In regards to what you'd said earlier, it sounds gross on the tongue. It feels gross to say, but the fact is the Bible does say it. Here's in 1 Corinthians 8:5. For though there be that are called gods, whether in heaven or in earth. And then I've got another one I'm about to pull up from in Isaiah 26:13. We've got, let me pull it up before I read it. That way we can all follow along together. Isaiah 26:13. O Lord our God, other lords beside thee have had dominion over us. By thee only will we make mention of thy name. And so there's two verses right there that I've used personally. These are verses I found on my own over time that have stuck out to me to show that it is okay, appropriate, and it's okay to say that there are many gods, but unto us there is one God. But there are many, many gods, you know what I'm saying, that are out here. You know, but all right, here we go. So morning stars, what is it? Sang together and shouted for joy.
Creation.
Yeah, here we go. Job 38:7. When the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy. I mean,
Now, who are those sons of God? The sons of God, those are angels.
right. Um, where am I at? Oh, here I am. Sorry. Let me back that up because just that one verse sounds kind of silly. But when here, that's only verse 7. So I'll just read the first 7 verses. This is Job 38. Then the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, dude, that's going to be fun when we get to talk about whirlwinds. Who
Oh,
is
can't wait.
Yeah. Who is this that darkeneth counsel by words without knowledge? Gird up now thy loins like a man, for I will demand of thee, and answer thou me. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth?
That's what
Declare,
I was talking about
understand.
earlier.
Yeah. Who hath laid the measures thereof, if thou knowest? Or who hath stretched the line upon it? Whereupon are the foundations thereof fastened? Or who laid the cornerstone thereof? This is all question marks, by the way, for those of you who are listening. God's asking him, who laid the measures on it, if you know? Who stretched the line upon it? Whereupon are the foundations thereof fastened? Or who laid the cornerstone thereof? We're obviously talking about creation here. And then the following verse, verse 7 says, when the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy. They were certainly present in the time of creation, you know?
They were present during the time of creation, and it's talking about shouting for joy and singing. And God spoke everything to existence, so they're all vocalizing right there at creation. So could it have been just Father, Son, Holy Spirit speaking among themselves? Sure, but
Sure.
is there another plausible answer for that? And these people try to discredit Christianity and use this verse, but there's a distinct possibility. And personally, I'm not the type that likes to put limits on God. If God, says that they were there at creation, singing for creation, if God said, said to each other, let's go down and make man in our image, there's nothing that I don't put past that God did use them in some way to co-create mankind. That's to me that doesn't cheapen anything. That just honestly
No,
that almost makes us even more spectacular. The fact that everybody,
the
it
full
was like
universe
all
gathered
of heaven
together.
had, if all of heaven had to chip in to make us. You know what I mean?
Right. Now,
So
and I want to clarify what you are not saying is you are not saying that we are created in the image of other gods. That's not what you're saying. In Genesis 1:27, so God created man in his own image, and then to double down on that, in the image of God created he him. So I just want to clarify, you're not saying that. So just
no. What I'm saying is that most likely God created angels that were similar looking to him, I imagine, and because he's
yeah,
saying in our image. If this is the case, he may be talking just among the Trinity. Like I said, I'm not definite on this, okay?
yeah, right,
But
right,
I just want to give people a little bit of knowledge that when they're speaking, if you're witnessing to people, you're going to come across this. If you're
dude,
searching for truth, if you're searching for validity of Christianity, you're going to come across this. And I
right,
just want to make sure that some of the angles covered. A lot of the things we'll talk about, just to get this out of the way, we're not sure on or anything else, but I do think that it's important to understand what's out there, okay? Because you have people running around now talking about uh, God is the same thing as the devil. The God of the Old
right,
Testament is no, it's the things like this, and it's just getting way out of proportion. So Christians
dude,
need to be founded and understand what's in the Word, and understand that there are possibilities that we don't have clarification on.
right,
It's not super important to your soul, but the people will bring this up and say, "Well, God's is da, 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 da." No, God is the Almighty and all powerful, and if they helped Him with creation, it was because He told them to help Him with creation because they're subservient to Him.
right,
Okay.
exactly.
There's
Agreed.
a reason that one of the names that he goes by is the Most High God. He
Right.
is the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. Doesn't
Hmm.
mean there's not other kings and princes, and doesn't mean there's not other lords. Okay,
Sure, Michael's a prince, right?
there's powers and principalities. There's Michael, you're a prince. You have Beelzebub, who is a dark prince. You have, there is a hierarchy, and there is, when they talked about the angel that was coming to I believe it was Gabriel coming to Daniel, and he got held up by the prince of Persia. Yeah. So Michael had to come, and he held him up for a couple of weeks. And then after Daniel was done, he was going to the prince of Grecia. And these aren't human princes, okay? This wasn't a human prince of Persia that held the angel back and kept him from getting to Daniel. These are powers and principalities, okay?
Right.
So just start expanding your mind and understanding that the spiritual world is a lot bigger than this small little thing that we've been made to believe it is. It is real. There are, every single thing within this place is affected by it, and there is an entity over it. Every emotion has an entity over it. Everything. I've said it several times here. The physical and the spiritual coming together to create reality. That is what you're looking at on a day-to-day basis, from the ants to the heavenly luminaries to everything around you. There is a reason why that the pagans went into the groves to worship, because they're among the trees in there. There's always in the groves, like Bohemian Grove. They're always in the groves to talk about.
Right.
We talked about the other night in person, the Assyrian, like likened to the trees in the garden. There's, start opening your eyes a little more. There's a lot more than just this physical, tangible, what you consider tangible existence. There's a whole other side to it. You're only looking at half the coin.
That's right. I've been putting up as many verses as I can when you're going through here, man.
I ramble a little bit. My apologies.
No, you're fine, man. It's if my response to you is slow, the only reason being is because I'm typing or I'm looking for something or trying to get in there.
Take your time. You're doing fantastic, bro. I couldn't do it like a quarter as you've been.
Just thinking about what you're saying about talking about having entities employed over some of these, whether it's the tides of the sea or the patterns of the wind or the you name it, these angels and principalities, beings, high powers, whatever, having these jobs. To me, I feel like a great way to say that is that the God of creation, all these things are made for his glory, yes, indeed. But, and again, this is speculation here, but I think it's a nice idea that he's almost made these things almost as a gift. You know what I'm saying? I was looking for the verse. I've stopped, but I'll find it in a moment. But it's one everybody knows, where, you have the talents and the guy does the 10 and this guy buries it and blah, blah, blah. After those talents are done, one of the things God says to him, Jesus says to him, is that, you've been trusted with little, and because you've done well with little, you'll be given much. And, one of the gifts that we're given here is the earth. We're given the gifts to have dominion over the fowls of the air and over the beasts of the earth and over the fish of the sea. And we see that if we're good stewards of these things, if we are doing our job while we're here, there's a verse that I'll pull up in a second that talks about you are to preach the gospel unto every living creature. So even on Sabbath, man, like when I'm outside with my dog sometimes in the morning, you know what I mean? It might sound silly, but I'll tell them a little something about Jesus. You know what I'm saying? That might sound silly, but it does say to preach the gospel unto every living creature. Yeah.
All things.
Yeah.
When Cain killed Abel, the earth cried out. The blood cried out from the earth. There's some traditions that say that, and this is more like Gnostic stuff. This isn't biblical, guys, so don't take it that way. That that Cain tried to bury Abel, and the earth would spit him back out.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Everything.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, a good way to think about it is, you grew up like watching movies like Pocahontas or about the Native Americans and how they have the river spirit and the spirit of the wind and the great spirit and all that. Not to say that you should follow their religion at all. What I'm saying is that's more of a true mindset than most Christians have. It talks about the angels at the four corners holding back the winds. I believe that's in Enoch. There's, and then we get into, is it the wisdom of Solomon or the testament of Solomon with all the demons, and it's controlled by the signet ring, and each one of the demons has a star they coincide with, like a star in the second heaven.
Right.
Yeah, all of these things in creation, this is the best way to look at it. Is like the Native American thing. Like, yes, there's a spirit of the winds. There's a spirit of, like, yes, there is. There, you know, you have the restrainer, which is Michael. That is his function. You know, there's everything has a function.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked earlier about Raphael and Rapha. God heals. He has functions. And Enoch, it talks about the functions of these archangels. Now, what you were saying about preaching to the dog and everything, before you even said that, I was thinking in my head, being stewards of the earth. A lot of times I think of sometimes I got Sam here. He's my dog, and he sometimes I get frustrated with Sam, but I have this voice in my head that comes on sometimes and says, you know what? Are you any different to God than this dog is to you?
Right. All the time.
If you can't have patience and compassion and mercy for this dog, then how can God have patience and compassion and mercy for you when you have more intellectual capability? You know what I mean? We have all these resources to see, but if you can't, if you can't at least, treat the dog with love and care and show grace to this dog that you've been entrusted to, how can you expect grace and mercy from God? Because I mean, you're in the same position. The dog depends on me for his life. He's the domesticated dog. He depends on me for his life. And like that, I depend on God for the life of my soul. We all do. Right. So, that is a good thing to keep in mind, Ross, to preach the word of that, but also to realize that with, the Spider-Man quote, with great power comes great responsibility. If we've been getting dominion over the animals and over the land and over the water, and I'm not some environmental freak or enviro Nazi, but we should, be good stewards over it and remember to, not hurt animals that we don't need to hurt, and not children, anything like that we're given dominion over. We should look at it almost like what would Jesus do thing. We should take care of the animals that we have and the things that we have in the same way we want God to take care of us and to be merciful and to show us grace. And we should. I think about that a lot, to be honest with you.
I couldn't agree more. You're the first person I've ever heard say that, but I've had those thoughts. I mean,
I believe that's from the Holy Spirit telling us, like, hey, man,
it's a learning lesson.
Act accordingly here, because this is a good example of how things are on the next level. You're the dog.
Exactly.
You're the slobbering dog that's just sinful and rolling around in it, and you're just begging for grace from the most powerful, almighty God.
You're so right. A lot of times I'm trying to help the dog. A lot of times I'm trying to help her and get her in places.
It's like the dog is just fighting you.
Yeah,
get the dog out of the street before it gets hit by a car, but it's just fighting you all the way. It's a good analogy. Us to a dog is, or us to God is like a dog to us. Yeah.
I think about it all of the time, bro. All the time. I'm so glad you said that. I've never actually voiced that opinion to anybody before, but I've had that thought many, many times. That's so neat, and it is a neat reference to think of, somebody like Gabriel or somebody like Michael, who this is your job, this is what you've been told to do, and they're doing it, bro. I mean, there could be an angel whose job is to make sure that the tides do what the tides do, and that the ocean comes up to its border, and it doesn't go past that unless he's commanded to let something happen, i.e. a tropical storm or whatever have you. But that's a great way of putting that, man. Really, it is. It really puts a lot of things into perspective into your role. I mean, a lot of people say, well, what's the meaning of life and what's the purpose of life? And this might be a little bit of an insight to that, a little bit of a gleam to say that this is your job. This is your role. You have a place in creation, and this is part of it. There's a lot to it when it comes to preaching the gospel and things of that nature. But just on chapter 1 right here, we're told, you're having dominion over the animals here, bro. You're having dominion over the fruit of the field and the tree that has the fruit bearing seed, and a lot of the things that you've already said that doesn't need to be repeated. But I think that's a really neat concept. It makes me feel valuable and important that I'm not just another specimen in a bajillion stars out in a random galaxy that has no point, no purpose. You know what I'm saying?
No, we are that's the whole point in really digging into this first chapter. I hate to be a horse to death, but If we're in a terrarium, an enclosure, there is
Right.
a creator. So understanding this and understanding, creation, cosmology, where we come from, and what our purpose is. These are the big questions. These are the important questions.
Right.
And to understand that we, men and women, we have dominion over this earth. We are, and then when you get into it even further, when you accept Christ, you become a royal priesthood. You're a peculiar people. You are to be set apart. Um,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
your rightful place within Christ is to be of a royal priesthood and a peculiar people.
Right.
And you do have dominion over the earth when you're walking in faith with God. You do have that dominion. This is what your purpose is. This is what you are here for. Um, this is the reason for creation. This is the reason you were here. You're here to praise God. You're here to have dominion over His creation, and you're here to um, be a blessing. Really, you're supposed to be a blessing to the earth and to all creation, the animals, the water, everything. You're supposed to be a blessing to this creation and to maintain it and to keep it in line and to you're supposed to be the caretakers of it. And then also you're supposed to be the caretakers of men and their souls. You are the royal priesthood. This is who
Right.
we are. And I remind myself of this a lot of times. Anybody that knows me knows that I'm a little bit of a hothead, but I say to myself all the time, "Are you acting like you're a royal priesthood, or do you feel like you deserve that?" This is what you understand who you are. There's clarity in it, and there's truth in it, and there's also conviction in it.
Purpose. Yeah. And that
Yeah.
comes with conviction. You're right. I mean,
Yeah,
so
you have to,
right.
you have to understand how you're supposed to act. You have to understand who you are. When you understand that you're a royal priesthood, you're supposed to be a set apart, peculiar people. Then you can't look like the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't look like the world. You can't think like the world does. You have to go back to right here in chapter 1. And all these hours we're talking is just foundations of who we are, where do we come from, what is our role here, who we're supposed to be. And I think Genesis chapter 1, as much as we talked about it, and it gives you all that right there in chapter 1, it's unarguable to me that this is a divinely inspired book. You can feel how you want about translations or where things come from or anything else like that. But all the big questions right here in chapter 1. And it's
Right.
a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. It tells you who you are, where we came from, what this place is, and what you're supposed to be doing and your role in it. I think that basically covers that for Genesis
Dude,
chapter
yeah,
1.
you just put the cherry on top, man. That's it. There's no need to say anything else.
Yeah.
You hit it. You hit it. Bro, that's it, man. I mean, that's it. I got nothing else to say on chapter 1 for the night, bro. You nailed it.
Chapter one's a heavy one, bro.
3 hours. But I mean, dude, that was so much fun. I mean, just to go through one chapter like that, and that is a hefty chapter of all. Not every video is probably going to make it to 3 hours. If it does, great. I mean, that means we're really getting some stuff done. But just in these 3 hours, man, I mean, I don't even know how many scriptures I pulled up on the screen. We didn't even read them all. I was just trying to follow you around and make sure that those references are up there for anybody that's watching to know you're not making anything up. It's all there.
Honestly, I wouldn't blame anybody for feeling like I was making it up, because these churches and Christian media, it does no favors for anybody, man.
Right.
It really does. You got people out there doing good work, but those guys are averaging 40,000 views a video maybe or something like that. And you have like the mega churches getting that every single service and pumping that into people's houses and everything else. And most of the time it's all garbage.
Right.
They have good sermons on like love and things, and that's cool.
Yeah.
And honestly, I could use a lot of that in my life, and you could always have more love and everything else. granted, that's kind of been used as a psyop to, you have to love everything, even sin. But
Right, exactly.
so, yeah, man. I think it's really good, dude. I think we're gonna have a lot of good conversations, and
Oh yeah. Oh
I,
yeah.
I just I hope people will actually see this and actually watch it and look into what we're talking about, man, and know that, look, it gets bleak out there, but there is a purpose. There's a reason we're here. There's a reason we're doing all this. It may not seem like it a lot of times. There's a lot of bad things that happen in the world, but there's a reason. Like I said, there's a reason we're here, and we got to take some accountability for why this place is the way it is. Can't just be blaming God, blaming God,
Right.
blaming God. We have dominion over this earth, like we just talked about, and the bad things happen because we've corrupted this place.
Yeah.
We've set things in motion, and accidents happen. There's a lot of people and everything else, but most of it is our doing, man. Most of it is our decision making. Most of it is, and there is demonic forces. There is things like that, and I believe if you are covered by the blood of Jesus, that you can be attacked physically by these entities, and there's things that happen like that. So I'm hoping that we can really tackle some of the things that trouble people about Christianity. That's my main thing, is because most of the people that are in churches and believe the way they believe are going to believe the way they're going to believe. I want to talk to the people that are really disenfranchised. And the people that, like we talked about the Elohim verse. I was so glad to stop there, because I was going to stop anyways, because that one's used all the time. So, there's plenty of gods. There's not one true God. Well, there is one true God. I mean, anything else under him is just administration.
Right. So, exactly right. It's just a little boss here. I think a great verse to close out on what you were just talking about is in Jeremiah chapter 5 and in Jeremiah chapter 9. These verses speak volumes. When you go into verse 8, they were as fed horses in the morning. Everyone neighed after his neighbor's wife. Shall I not visit for these things, saith the Lord? And shall not my soul be avenged on a nation such as this? There's a handful of times in Jeremiah where it says these things. Shall my soul not be avenged on a nation such as this? And just right there, that was just in reference to dudes looking at other dudes' wives. That's it. And he's already saying, I'm gonna do something to this nation for this. Where we are in a nation, and obviously I'm included into this as a sinner myself, we are already worthy of being avenged by God. We're already worthy of a righteous hand coming in onto this nation, and really the whole world, man. So at any point in time, we really are due what's coming to us. So to really wrap up in a nutshell, a lot of what you said tonight, time is short. You don't have time to goof around. It is time to be serious. It is time to study, like what you said. And another thing that you said that I really, really liked was in regards to you have a purpose, you have a job, you have a goal. We know what we got to do with the planet. It's easier said than done, but we know that we're ready to be avenged on. The things that we've done here, just the things I've done in my own life, is enough for the nation to be avenged on. You know what I'm saying? And there's a lot of us here that have done it, we do serve a pretty awesome God, man. I mean, we really do. Every one of us are deserving and worthy of the worst punishment, in my personal opinion, with the exception of maybe a child. But to know these things and to get closer to God, to have the knowledge and the wisdom and the understanding, reading the book and studying, to me, this is so much greater than anything else, man. Because without the knowledge to know how, without the understanding to perceive, and without the wisdom to look into these things, we'd be lost, just lost as can be. And with that being said, dude, I'm just happy I get to share it with you. I'm happy that I'm not alone.
I've had a really good time, dude. You did so awesome with with the verses and everything, man. You were just pulling them. I was watching the cover on the screen, like, yeah, Brady got it. Yes.
Appreciate it, man. Appreciate it. All right,
Yeah.
bro. I think that's it, man. I love you dearly. You got